seagulls follow trawler. It's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you very much.
Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Don't back down, double down. Don't back down, double down.
Bonjour, one and all. Yes, a wee French word to start the show tonight. And just because I've utilised Google Translate for all it's worth, étiez-vous prêt pour du Bustalgia? There you go, folks. I just said, are you ready for some Bustalgia in French? As I say, I didn't utilise Google Translate for that. No, of course, I knew that off the top of my head. Yeah, right. But yeah, welcome aboard, folks. It is the Bhoycie Bus. The Bustalgia tour continues. We've headed for the Channel Tunnel. We are off to France for France 98. So come aboard the number 98 bus. Come in, get your ticket, get your seat. Get a seat right next to this guy on that side. Passenger tonight, Russell Boyce, you're back. You're joining me tonight. How are you feeling, sir?
Oh, I'm good, mate. It's good to go back in the old time machine bus, Phil McGinlay. I'm looking forward to going back to 98. 98, we're beginning to think, like, you know, the memories are getting stronger. There's players there I'm looking at and going, you began to sort of watch over the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years as you were growing up and all that. And of course, it was up until last year, the last time Scotland had been an international tournament. And of course, the last time they were at a World Cup. So vivid memories of it, mate. Vivid memories. You're already getting praise for your top as well, mate. Mark Kearney's straight in there.
Man. I mean, it's the wrong World Cup, but as I said in the very first video, I'm a big Baggio fan, boys, everybody knows, and this is the Italian 90 Italy top, but yeah, it's a cracker. But yeah, France 98, there's a lot on the agenda tonight. We'll be talking about Zidane masterclasses, Ronaldo meltdowns, Beckham red cards, Croatian surprise packages, that Bergkamp first touch, immaculate, the razor sharp wit of Martin O'Neill, yes, really, sound the klaxon, Russell, sound that klaxon, mate. And of course, another point, despite Delamitri asking them really nicely, Scotland did indeed come home too soon. So yes, that is on the agenda tonight, folks. Yes, it is. But of course, let's get the pleasantries out of the way. Remember to subscribe, like, comment, share, and all that other good stuff because it helps the channel out massively and spreads the word to the Bhoycie Bus, gets our service out there. And as usual, I have come armed with a trivia question to get us started, to warm the crowd up. This week's one, oh man,
this week, by the way, I swear to God, man, I'm ready.
Oh God, okay. So there's 3 answers to this one, 3. So there's 3 teams who have been eliminated from the World Cup without losing a game. Who are they? We will revisit the answers.
Say it again.
3 teams who've been at the World Cup and been eliminated without losing a game at the tournament. Who are they?
France 98, there was 3 teams unbeaten that went out the tournament.
No. At the World Cup overall. However, I'll give you a clue. One of them was at France 98.
I thought that might be the case.
One of them is at this World
okay.
Cup. One of them is, yep. And the other two quite well spaced apart. But that is tonight's trivia question. As usual, we'll revisit the answers at the end. So yeah, 3 teams who have the unlucky record of not losing a game, but still getting eliminated. Unlucky for some.
That is unlucky. That's quite Scottish. Like, that's surprising. That is fair enough.
I remember the last week.
Scotland's not one of the answers, but that is quite a Scottish.
It's a very Scottish thing. And also, we preview, we're not going to name it yet, but there will also be date of Bhoycie will be returning as well. Mr. Boyce, you know, if you've been missing the chat manager streams, you know that Mr. Boyce here has got I don't know how to say it. It's a talent. I mean, you should go on Britain's Got Talent, mate. Honestly, I think you would win with that. Like 4 golden buzzers for that one or whatever it is they do on that, because that is freakishly good. But yeah, I've got 5 players lined up. Russell doesn't know who they are. I'm just going to throw the names at him later on, and we'll see if he can get their date of birth here.
I swear, I'm watching you though, Phil. This better be a reasonable 5 players. If you've took the piss this time, I swear to God, this show's getting pulled.
I've not picked like Austria's third choice goalkeeper or anything. Don't worry, they're all player names that you will know. You'll definitely know them, and the viewers will know them as well. They shall. Indeed, it should be fun when we get to that. But as usual, I guess we need to start with what was going on in the world in 1998. What was happening? Russell, let's have a wee pop culture rewind and go back to that fateful year. Let's have a wee look at what was going on. So, as usual, we'll start with the big football winners and what happened with the Champions League, the UEFA Cup, and the Cup Winners' Cup, which is 1 year away from becoming extinct. So, it's getting very close to the end of its lifespan. But yeah, Champions League, we saw Real Madrid win against Juventus. They defeated them 1-0 in Amsterdam. Yugoslavian striker Predrag Mijatovic scored the winner. The UEFA Cup was an all-Italian final. Inter Milan beating Lazio 3-0. Ronaldo, who we're talking about tonight, he scored. Zamorano, who will also come up at some point tonight, he scored as well. And an absolute screamer by Javier Zanetti, which was a bit of a rarity because he didn't score many goals, did Zanetti? But yeah, he scores an absolute worldie in this final. And the Cup Winners' Cup was won by Chelsea. Gianfranco Zola came off the bench and scored with his first touch against Stuttgart, who Russell did say the other week he wants the Champions League next season. Unfortunately, though, they are not in the Champions League next season. Yeah, Frankfurt. But yeah, Zola scored the winner in that one, so 1-0 to Chelsea. And then the big winners in England. Oh my God, Russell. It's not Man United and Rangers that won the England and Scotland leagues. It's Arsenal and Celtic. Celtic won the league in 1998. Oh my God.
Amazing.
Yeah, stop the 10. Wim Janssen's boys. Done
Huge.
It.
Huge, mate. Huge.
Yeah.
It felt that was the most surreal title win ever, because it had never happened in my lifetime before. That's why it's the most surreal.
Yeah.
We're not meant to do that. You know, unsurprisingly, it was Henrik's first season at the club, you know. He set the tone, mate. And he finished that story as well with one hell of a finish. But, you know, in that final game against St Johnstone, I've got to say, though, in terms of iconic moments, that was an iconic day in Celtic's history. I'm going to give the English League a wee bit of their due, though, Phil. Because I am convinced when Steve Bould chips that ball forward to his centre-back partner, who is marauding through the full whatever team they're playing, I can't remember. And he just chases it down, mate. Takes a touch, and then on the half volley in his left peg, he just, and it's the commentary from Martin Tyler, you know, mate, when he's Tony Adams, would you believe it? And then, you know, Tony Adams came back from alcoholism. He was the least likely, I think, in Wenger's revolution to have lasted. I thought, you know, when you look back at it, you go, well, someone who's got a drinking culture in them, etc., club captain or not, you might be left behind by this new era of healthy footballers and all that nonsense. You know? But actually, it's Adams who walks away. I think the statue outside, what's it called, Emirates now?
Emirates.
I think that's actually all of that moment as Adams is walking away with his hands aloft.
That is indeed. You see, funny thing is, little known fact would be my English team, because some people have got them, is actually Arsenal because of the Dennis Bergkamp love. Because as I said in the first episode we did, other than Baggio, another player that stood out for me in the 94 World Cup was Bergkamp. And I always say, best first touch. So see when he signed for Arsenal like a year later, it was an easy one, but a bit shite now, let's be honest. There's not much to shout about with Arsenal, but that day in particular, I remember it very well with Tony Adams got a brace that day. Not only did he score that one, he scored a brace, and Mark Overmars scored the other two.
I don't. Well, I wouldn't have known that.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have known that.
Aye. And but yeah, the other leagues to say, so it was a good year for me, 1998, because Celtic won 2 trophies and Arsenal won a double that year. But in Italy, Juventus won the title there. In Spain, it was Barcelona. In Germany, it wasn't Bayern, it wasn't Borussia Dortmund, it was Kaiserslautern. Remember them? They were like a decent team for like a couple of years, and then they just faded. I think they're in the second Bundesliga league now.
Maroon? Was it like a maroon?
Maroon colour, yeah.
Aye.
Aye, it was a stream like Kaiserslautern. And then in France, Racing Club Lens, was the PSG, it was the Marseille, was the Monaco, it was Lens that won the league. Strange year, 1998. And of course, in Holland and Portugal, they kept it real. Ajax and Porto won the titles there. Every episode done so far, Ajax have won the Dutch title every single season. Yep. We'll find a PSV or a Feyenoord one eventually. We will stumble across it somewhere.
We will get there, mate. We will.
And the Ballon d'Or winners, my God, I always do who the holder was going into this tournament and who came out the tournament with the trophy. This is maybe the best pairing I've seen yet. Ronaldo was the holder. Zidane won it in 1998 after this World Cup.
Yes,
Jesus
that's right.
Christ. Wow.
Scary, eh? Scary. The top 2 players in the world at that point, in my opinion. Phil, no doubt about it. The awards tell it, tell their own story. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they were frighteningly good players. It was, I know, obviously we'll talk about the final, but it was the right 2 guys to be against each other in the final. If you know what I mean, it's a shame what happened, but we'll get to all that.
Yeah, I know it's quite interesting when we do get to the final. The 2 guys, the pivotal ones are the 2 Ballon d'Or. Is this a live update?
I think Tony Ralston has scored for Scotland in his first start already. He gets numbers, by the way. I'm telling you.
14 keeping us up to date. Thank you very much, Kevin 14. And I'll just quickly run through some other sports winners in 1998. Once again, Michael Schumacher was picked to the F1 Championship. This time it was Mika Hakkinen, the McLaren Mercedes driver, that beat him to the title. Denver Broncos won the Super Bowl that year, beating the Green Bay Packers. Pete Sampras was once again the men's Wimbledon champion, and once again he beat Goran Ivanisevic, who we've talked about before. But don't worry, Russell, his time is coming, as we know, 2001.
2002, 2001, 2002, one of the 2.
Yeah. And the women's title was won by Jana Novotná. Mark Amira won the US Masters golf, and he won the British Open that summer. I thought this was the era of Tiger Woods, where he was winning everything, but it's not quite started yet. Now, in the snooker, we talked about that. Well, we've talked the last 2 shows, it's been Stephen Hendry. It was John Higgins this time. I haven't seen John Higgins won it in 97 as well, and 98.
No.
Before, no, did he not win it in 97?
Doherty won it against Hendry in 97.
Right, okay.
And then Higgins won it in 98. And the funny thing about 98, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong here. I'm gonna put, I think Hendry went out in the first round that year.
Wow.
To Jimmy White.
There you go, Jimmy White's revenge, mate.
Incredible, yeah. I think that's right. But yeah, John Higgins then paraded the trophy at Celtic Park on the trophy day. Well, when we won the last day of the season, we won the final. He was there with it, and he had the trophy. So he came out, I think, before the game or at halftime. But he says the funniest thing. He says it on his open goal interview, and if you've not watched that, Phil, there's 2 hours that you'll fucking love. John Higgins on the open goal is amazing. Okay. He's such a Tim, mate. Like he's just class. But he was saying that basically he was like getting asked to go in the change, the Celtic dressing room. He goes, there's Scandinavians in that bouncing about looking at me. He goes, who the fuck's that? He goes, they don't watch the snooker, you know what I mean? He goes, I just got stuck in. It was brilliant.
Oh, nice. I was wondering because I had this idea in my head that he also won 97. I didn't even check it. I could just check this on Wikipedia, verified it, but I just had this idea in my head that he'd also won it in the 2 years that Hendry didn't win it. 97, then he won it again in 96 to 99. So I thought he'd picked it up there, but maybe I was wrong. So I could have Wikipedia'd that and I could have found that out. But anyway, moving on to the next sport, boxing. It was a pretty easy year. World Heavyweight Champion all year was Lennox Lewis. What was Mike Tyson up to that year? He was serving a suspension for biting Evander Holyfield's ear, as we know. But also with spare time as well, he was popping up in the World Wrestling Federation at the start of the year because, as I always like to talk every time we come on, I'll always bring up what was going on in the world of wrestling.
I love that, mate.
It's red hot. So I say Mike Tyson pops up as a celeb guest at the start in '98 in the WWF, and it's a massive ratings boost for them because he is like the most controversial sports figure in the world.
The
So it's a
baddest
real
man on the planet, they kept calling him, remember?
baddest man on the planet, and Stone Cold Steve Austin comes out and gets in his face. It just,
Yes.
yeah, it's an incredible moment. But yeah, '98 is quite a year because this is also the year and the month when The Undertaker throws Mick Foley off the top of the Hell in a Cell, which is iconic. Yeah. Oh, Mick Foley.
Yeah. That was class.
Yeah, I don't think Vince McMahon thought it was class because from what's been said is Vince wasn't aware that was going to happen, but Mick Foley just had a thing for, I don't have a body like Hulk Hogan, I don't wrestle like Bret Hart, I don't move around quickly like Shawn Michaels, I'm not tall like The Undertaker, but one thing I can do is really hurt myself and the people enjoy it. So he was quite happy by saying, do you know what, throw me off the top of the cage, and Undertaker would have been like, are you sure? So yeah, mental times, but it's an iconic moment still replayed to this day. Yeah, it is. And yeah, in the WWF, Steve Austin, Stone Cold Steve Austin is the world champion. The Rock is on the rise at this point. So is Triple H. Over in WCW, the NWO is kind of running its course right now. Hollywood Hogan's still holding the world title. But there's a guy named Bill Goldberg that's on the rise in WCW at that point. He would give them another wee shot in the arm before 1999 happened, and then WCW really began to go down the toilet at that point. But yeah, '98 is a red hot year for the battle between the World Wrestling Federation and World Championship Wrestling. There you go. Oh yeah, but moving on to, oh god, this is a barren one from the most part because the last two episodes we've done, the music has been quite a staple of the show because it defines the era. But when I was looking through 1998, I was like, Jesus, man, like, I can't even find a sound to define 1998 because it's post-Britpop era. I can remember 99 was filled with a lot of American artists getting to number one, a lot of Latino sounds like Jennifer Lopez and Ricky Martin and Santana made a comeback. So 99 is very much that, but 98 is this weird anomaly in the middle. So some of the big songs, well, number one when the World Cup kicked off was C'est La Vie by Bewitched. Remember that tune, Russell?
I do, mate. Say you will, say you won't, say you'll do it. I don't.
Yeah. Four Irish girls with the old double denim on as well. Denim J-skits all round.
I'm all for a denim J-skit, as you know.
You love a denim J-skit, mate.
All for that.
But some of the big songs throughout 1998, just proving that there's no real definitive sound. We have Cher made a comeback. We believe you couldn't escape that song. It was fucking everywhere. Run DMC and Jason Nevins. It's like that. Angels by Robbie Williams. Never Ever by All Saints. My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion from Titanic. Leanne Rimes, How Do I Live? Oasis did have a number one. We're all around the world. We'll talk about that in a wee moment. Aerosmith, another song from a film that you just couldn't avoid in '98 from the film Armageddon. Don't Want to Miss a Thing. Madonna. Yeah. The Future Mrs. Chris Evans, Billy Piper, Because We Want to. Rockefeller Skank by Fatboy Slim. Lauryn Hill, That Thing. And If You Tolerate This, Your Children Will Be Next by the Manic Street Preachers.
Yeah, good song.
Yeah, though, it really is.
It is. I think a lot of the music, though, that came out, see if you actually look at some of the pop stars, like Robbie Williams was making music that was kind of like Oasis, if you know what I mean. Like the pop stars had seen that a formula. This is what pop star producers do. They find what the formula is at the time. Like the 80s, it was Waterman and fucking whoever. Yeah. And they'd realised there was a formula. And in the 90s, because it was like indie, a lot of indie music or rock and roll, whatever you want to call it, there's Britpop became a thing. Why not get our pop stars why don't we write songs for our pop stars in that sort of genre? So it was like the most sort of ballady and sort of, you know, it was very much pinched, mate. It was very much pinched. And I also think there was a big thing where Britpop was on the rise as Labour were coming in and all this shit, Phil. And then, and then Princess Diana died, and I think the music became a wee bit more in tandem, shall we say, with the mood of the country. Because of that, it was more sombre. But I think a lot of the music, when you look at like the music, like All Saints you're referring to there, like Robbie Williams, they were very much making music. I think, I'm not going to say it was anything like Oasis in terms of quality or anything like that, but I think the three chords, guitar sounds was beginning to come into popular music, Natalie and Brugler, stuff like that. It was definitely going that way. That the record producers have found the formula right in front of their face, Phil, and I think that's why it changed. It was like rock and roll got neutered a wee bit because now all the pop stars are trying to do similar sort of music. Would that be right in thinking? I don't think this was on your list. Was Bitch by Meredith Brooks that year as well? Remember that song?
It could have been. It's not on my list. I was mostly
It's
looking
a
at the songs that were
belter,
number
though.
one, but it's a good song. I remember that was on one of the Now albums,
I don't know why
like Now
it's good in
38
my
or something like that, you know. But
Aye.
when I was running for that listing, you're mentioning about like the death of Princess Diana, like the film that we talked about before, Live Forever. I'm pretty sure that the sort of end of that film, the conclusion they come to is the end of Britpop was around about there. That was one of the major events, but also
that's where I stole it from, mate.
aye, also the
He just ousted me.
sorry, man, sorry, but also they do mention that the sort of underwhelming reception to Be Here Now. So Russell, as a big Oasis fan, what do you think of the album Be Here Now? Because All Around the World was a number one in '98, and that was one of the singles off of that one. But do you think it's as bad as it gets panned for? Or
I think it's exactly how they were meant to sound. I think those paychecks have started coming in, and like they're realising. Like I think Noel Gallagher bought Supernova Heights. Remember his big mansion and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And like these are guys from a council estate that are now multi-millionaires and in the biggest band on the planet. I think the album sounds like, as I think Noel described it, as a bunch of guys full of cocaine and KFC. And it is a wee bit over the top at times. There's too many guitar riffs and all that, fair enough, but still some great tracks as well, man.
Oh, Stand By Me is an anthem, by the way. Like, I don't think Stand By Me gets enough praise. It's phenomenal.
Absolute anthem. Do you know what it means? Like, brilliant comeback song, you know?
It's got that line, the coming in a mess, going out in style. Fucking love that line. Such a good lyric. Great lyric, man. But let's dive into some one-hit wonders. We went through some of them in 1996, and oh boy, there are some whoppers from 1998. So we've got Save Tonight by Eagle Eye Cherry. That was everywhere as well. Feel It by The Tamperer featuring Maya, not to be confused with Maya, but Maya does feature in a wee minute. Crush by Jennifer Page, You Get What You Give by New Radicals, Music Sounds Better With You by Stardust, Horny by Moose T and Hot and Juicy.
Yes.
Ghetto Superstar by Praz Michelle featuring Maya, Brimful of Asher by Corner Shop, Dance the Night Away by the Mavericks, and 1 Week by Bare Naked Ladies. Russell, you laugh at that one because off screen you told me an interesting fact about that song.
I can like, I don't know if folk remember 1 Week by the Bare Naked Ladies, but if you've not listened to it, listen to it, and then try in the early hours of the morning in someone's kitchen. Doesn't matter whose, preferably a friend, because it'd be pretty random if you were in someone else's kitchen at that time. But in the early hours of the morning, my party piece, or one of my many party pieces, when I'm away with it, shall we say, Phil, is I can just randomly like sing that song, nae looking at words, nae checking.
Wow.
And I mean, it's quick. It is proper quick.
Yep.
So
it's a proper tongue twister of a song. And if you've never heard of the band, say they're called Bare Naked Ladies, but there are no Bare Naked Ladies in the band. So if you're going to look them up, you're going to be very, very disappointed if that's what you're thinking you're going to see. Oh, no. A couple of headlines from the music world in 98. Jerry Halliwell left the Spice Girls, and in the last episode, me and Russell both said that Jerry was our favourite Spice Girl. So in 98, we were beating a lonely tear at that news. But the Spice Girls still had a few songs in 98. But there was also a big controversial story, and I think you want to touch on this one a wee bit, Russell. George Michael caused a bit of a stir in 1998 when he was caught in a public toilet in LA doing some naughty behaviour. But as you say, George Michael's one of your like heroes, and he's a great musician, phenomenal musician. Brilliant songs. But yeah, wee tongue-in-cheek moment where he released a song basically retaliating to those headlines outside, which did get to number one in 98 as well.
Aye. I mean, George Michael was so funny about all that as well. That's the thing. He got stitched up, right? It was a set-up, what happened. But as he said in one of his interviews, he says, I defy anyone. Whether just because it's gay, it's getting found upon. He goes, but realistically, if you were straight or gay, it doesn't matter. And you're preferred, whether it be opposite sex or same sex, whatever you fancy, and someone approaches you and goes, I'll get you in one of the cubicles and obviously offer you, you know what? Do you know what I mean? He's like, no one's turning that down. So I think he was offered a BJ basically, and he was like, I'm going for one, man. And he was like, who would turn that down if you're single? Like, nobody. So I kind of, like, I thought that was very funny. And then he said something else. I think it was to Parkinson. And he said something like, you know, because I think he was like, oh, would you not rather it came out another way? Like, you know, the fact about your sexuality and stuff. And I think he'd said, like, Like you said, oh, that's right. I forgot I needed to tell the BBC when I realised I was gay. It's like, he'd actually, I think George Michael had been gay for years before that. I think he had a boyfriend and no one knew about it. And then his boyfriend died in the early 90s.
Yeah.
And they did, and then Freddie Mercury died like a couple of months later.
Yeah.
So he did Somebody to Love at the Freddie Mercury tribute gig. It's sold at Wembley, and it's amazing. He does it with Queen. And he basically says he was singing that about two people, not just Freddie, but he was also singing about his ex-partner. Right, okay. He says there was a lot of emotion. And then, of course, as folk are alluding to in the comments, then when he comes back, as Stubbsy Hall says, and goes, let's go outside, and he dresses as the policeman who's obviously like the Kia. I think it was a police that was what they were wearing when they'd arrested him. The urinals, if you remember in the video, swivel round to
it's disco lights and stuff like that.
It's utter genius. And what a way just to go, not one fuck given. And that to me is how it should be. You know, who cares? I mean, I think he was right. He was like, it's not. It doesn't need to be public information. I don't need to tell the BBC. You know what I mean? And the only reason that you know now is because I was offered, I said aye to him, and it turns out it was a load of shite. He's laughed at himself for it. I think he's quality, man. And
good musician.
His music's unbelievable. Yeah, but I also think he was sound as fuck too, man.
Aye. Funny guy, man. Some of the stuff I've seen him in, like, you know, he's got a really good sense of humour and he can laugh at himself, and that's the important thing. As long as you can laugh at yourself, you know, don't take yourself too seriously. A couple of wee music headlines before we go as well on this section. Of course, World Cup this year. A lot of football songs came out in 1998. They re-released 3 lines. Vindaloo by Fat Les, which of course has that, as you described, in that plant pot, Matt Lucas jumping about in the video. So is David Walliams. There's a young Lily Allen in the video. They parody. They parody Bittersweet Symphony. They do basically Paul Kay is playing Richard Ashcroft in it, and also another hilarious cameo in it is Edward Tudor Pole. Do you remember who Edward Tudor Pole was, Russell?
No.
Do you remember the Crystal Maze? Remember when Richard O'Brien hosted it? When Richard O'Brien left, Edward Tudor Pole took over in the sort of dying years of the Crystal Maze. He's also one of the people jumping down the street behind Paul Kay in that video. So there's another useless fact for you tonight that I'm just throwing out
Very good, mate. I like useless fact.
But yeah, there's a young Lily Allen video because Keith Allen's obviously the man behind Fat Les. But yeah, if you look in the crowd, you can see her there. She's like 13 years old or something like that, but she's in the wee crowd. And also, England's official song for this World Cup, it wasn't 3 Lions. It was England United, which was a mishmash of Echo and the Bunnymen, Ocean Colour Scene, Space, and the Spice Girls.
That is like the Travelling Mulberries are probably like, that's like as big a supergroup as us, you know?
Yeah, aye. That's like a Sunday Sesh with the Sixers on here, you know? That's what that is.
Mate. Aye, that is right. But the song was shite, though. Man.
Oh, what a shite. Just keep 3 Lions in '98, you know, when they re-released it. That's, you know, a much better tune. But
they re-released it, mate, and it was quality. The re-release, I actually preferred it. And I like that song, full stop. I stand by, but I like the '98 version. I do.
It's England. That's the thing. Like, as much as they're like our enemy, they do have some good songs. But I said to you the other day, "World in Motion." I will not hear a bad thing said about "World in Motion." That is a fucking tune, that, by the way. But the biggest football song of the summer, the song that was the anthem, and it still gets played this day in stadiums all around probably around the world. "Carnival de Paris" by Dario G. That was the definitive anthem of the '98 World Cup. Phenomenal. So we'll move on now. Just have a look at some films that were about.
Interesting though, Phil. Just to cut you off, Les Watt says he's done the Crystal. I'm guessing he means the
Crystal Maze.
I don't know. It's either done. Well, he's not put maze. He just says I've done the Crystal. So either the show's going off on a different tangent now, Phil, and folk are confessing some.
Hope it's no
some controversial habits.
Yeah, aye.
Totally, mate. Totally.
Les Watts, please verify that it's a Crystal Maze you're talking about. Tell the chat all about it, mate. What a show.
Maybe just better to take that comment down before we get shut down, man.
Yes,
okay. On you go, Phil. Sorry about that.
It's all right. There's some films that came out in 1998. It was a summer for the big Hollywood blockbuster Godzilla, was out. The Truman Show, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, Armageddon, and Deep Impact both came out in 98. Both of them literally had the exact same storyline. Meteor heading towards the Earth, going to destroy us all. The Big Lebowski, a favourite of mine. I love that film. Enemy of the State, The Waterboy, There's Something About Mary, Rush Hour, and Save It Private Ryan were all 1998 films. There you go. And I think Bhoycie has stalled just now. I think.
I've no idea what's happening.
The Gremlins, mate, they're out to get us. They must have been sending them from another pod to stop us after the momentum that this show's been getting, mate. That's what it must have been. But you're back now, yes. We're okay. Cool.
Yeah, I'm jamming, mate.
Okay, sound, mate. Sound.
I don't know what happened there, man.
Aye. Well, the thing is, so far all the shows that we've done have been kind of glitch free. There had to be one, you know. There had to be.
I know, mate. I know.
One had to guess. Hello,
look
Stephen
at that,
Hamilton.
Stephen. Hey, he's in big trouble, by the way. 10 days, the clock is ticking. English Celts against the Bhoycie Bus. Are you mental, lads? They actually want to take us on, Phil. They've lost the plot, by the way. By the way, Twitter's going to ramp up over the next week or so with me winding them up big time, mate. We have got a question, a sports show coming in. What is it, the 18th?
18th and the 23rd, I think you said, was the 2 legs.
Apparently, I completely froze as a musical statue. It was a bit embarrassing, man. Sorry about that. I hope it was put on a decent face. Anyway, sorry about this, Phil.
It's all right, don't worry about it, mate. I say we've been quite lucky with every show we've done where it's been quite error-free. There had to be one eventually. There had to be. But it's all right, man. It's fine. Get it the way
We've recovered, man.
We've recovered, mate. So the big news headlines in 1998. The names Clinton and Lewinsky would become forever linked in 1998. If you know, you know. Titanic absolutely swept the Oscars, winning 11 awards, which I believe at that time was a record. Some little company by the name of Google was first incorporated. Wonder if they'll go on to do anything. Furbies were the toy that everybody wanted at Christmas time in 1998. And the euro currency was first created in 1998. But yeah, not exactly an exciting year for lots of headlines, but yeah, that's the main headline. So yeah, we've taken you through what's happened in 1998. Let's start to look at the tournament. So we've got a couple of wee pre-tournament headlines, which I've always got a wee sort of
course,
roundup. Yes. So, as I said earlier on, the official song, the official song from the organisers was Rendezvous by Jean-Michel Jarre, a French DJ, but it's widely accepted that Carnaval de Paris is the anthem of this this World Cup. Yeah, it's still to this day, as it still gets played. And this was also an interesting year because on television, Nike decided that this would be the World Cup where they would first do a mass advertising campaign during a tournament, which over the next few tournaments would become synonymous. So this one, to start, was the Brazil national team are boarding a plane in Rio de Janeiro to go to Paris, and they decide to have a kickabout in the airport, and the whole advert is like a 3-minute long thing where they're running around past each other. Roberto Carlos hitting an absolute swirler right down the runway. Ronaldo chests it down. Denilson doing wee flicks. Rivaldo. It's absolutely incredible. So this is the first in a sort of running series. Every tournament after, Nike, and they would just get better every time. They would top themselves every year, go, this one's better. How can we top it next year? We'll top it again with this one. 2002, though, is the best one, and when we get to it, we'll discuss it. But Russell, do you remember this advert, man?
Yes, and my favourite thing about the advert is the fact Ronaldo misses at the end.
He does, he hits the post. Yep.
He hits the post. It's one of the bollards, obviously, like when you're in the walkway in the airport, and he hits it, and he's like, and I'm like, I think that's good because they're taking the piss at themselves a wee bit as well. But iconic, mate, absolutely iconic. That's when the Nike football adverts started going like big time, mate. You know what I mean? And Cantona used to always make an appearance in most of them as well. I think that one was dedicated just to the Brazil team.
Cantona's in it. Cantona is in it.
Yes,
he's on the plane as a passenger while they're kicking the ball about outside. He's sitting reading a newspaper. He looks out the window and goes, and then he goes back to reading the newspaper. It's like Stan Lee in the Marvel Comics movies. You know, he has to make an appearance somewhere in the background, but yeah, he's there.
Absolutely, mate. And funnily enough, the t-shirt style that they're wearing is just a Nike t-shirt with a big swoosh, and then Brazil underneath it.
Yep.
And that slightly more block capital letters now, but is the exact format that Spurs, PSG, etc. were using as their training, well, not their training t-shirts, but I think they're casuals t-shirts only a season ago or so. So it's funny to see that come back. Yep, it's a cycle, mate.
It does indeed, mate. Just like I talked about last week, what's old is new, and I was talking about MP3s and cassettes and CDs. It'll all come back around again. Just you wait. So last thing before we go into the actual tournament, the host cities for this one were Saint-Denis, Paris, Marseille, Lyon, Lens, Nantes, Toulouse, Saint-Etienne, Bordeaux, and Montpellier were the host cities in France. So let's go to talking point number one. And just like last week, where I declared it was shite to be Scottish, just like in Trainspotting, it's still shite being Scottish because this was our first experience of, well, to this day, it's still me and Russell's only experience of Scotland at a World Cup because this is the one that we remember. We were too young for Italia 90, but Italia 90 wasn't much better when you look back in the archives. But yeah, here we go with another one of those. This can only happen to Scotland. So yeah, they've somehow managed to Scotland it right up as per usual. So we're drawn into a group with the holders, Brazil, and we're going to play in the opening game. We've also got Norway and Morocco, which are on paper looks quite favourable. Doesn't look too bad. Now, when I was researching this, the first thing that struck me is there is a massive Celtic contingent in this squad, which shows how important Wim Jansen realised to have a Scottish core, because obviously we won the two trophies that season. So the players that went to this World Cup that were Celtic players were Paul Lambert, Jackie McNamara, Darren Jackson, Craig Burley, Tom Boyd, Tosh McKinlay, Jonathan Gould, and Simon Donnelly. Only one Rangers player went, and it was Gordon Durie. But yeah, when I read that, I was like, just shows you how, because I think when Wim Jansen took over, he wanted to get a Scottish assistant manager because it would help him with like scouting players and knowing the league. But yeah, it just shows you again how important to get that title over the line, have guys that know what it means to be at Celtic and win that title.
Well, I think that's very interesting because I would always associate the Wim Jansen era as the start of Celtic's first team becoming much more cosmopolitan. And then you hit me with that. And I'm now going, fucking hell. It's very cleverly done because there was, I think Tommy Burns had sort of, his side was the first one that you seen that was becoming sort of almost 50-50 with foreigners and Scots players. And I'm all for that, by the way. I think it's brilliant because you get different styles. Styles make fights, as they say, Phil, And that is quite surprising. I mean, Jonathan Gould, I didn't know if you'd said there's a Celtic goalkeeper for the 90s that went to a World Cup, we never have got Jonathan Gould. Good question. Do you know what I mean? That's good trivia. So he must have been third choice behind.
It was
Leighton
Jim Leighton, and Gorham didn't go. I don't think. Neil Sullivan was the other goalkeeper. It was Neil Sullivan. Gorham was injured for the tournament. Jim Leighton started the 3 games and goal, and as we will see when we get to the Morocco one, Jim Leighton did not have a good night that night, I'll tell you.
Mate. It was the wrong choice though as well. I you speak about managers having blind spots. I know you've already how do you use a klaxon? Sounded the klaxon. Is that
sounded the klaxon? Yeah, sounded the
You've already sounded. I mean, we were talking about him having blind spots towards like goalkeepers and that. Do you know what I mean? Craig Brown's blind spot was, I think, even at Euro 96, that took a lot. I don't know if you remember, it was a lot of pressure on Craig Brown to play Gorham.
Yeah.
As opposed to like,
do
you know what I mean? Like, as opposed to that was what he wanted to do. And then it's funnily enough, he reverted back to type and went for Jim Leighton again, even though he was older. He went back to him as the number one for the World Cup in '98, and it bit him in the balls, you know what I mean? That'd have been Jim Leighton literally bit him in the balls. That's a crazy thought to have. But I think it's an interesting one because he got that call wrong. Do you know what I mean? He just got that call wrong.
Especially when you look at Jonathan Gould, who's just won the title in another cup with Celtic. Neil Sullivan was a Premier League goalkeeper at that point with Wimbledon. Jim Leighton was at Aberdeen, who finished like nowhere that season, but you know, that's what it is. Well, speaking of Euro 96, just mentioned it there, good thing this happened. Gary McAllister missed the tournament through injury. Good thing, you know, we did get a penalty in this tournament and we had a different outcome this time. But Gary Mack missed it due to injury, and Colin Hendry was named as the Scotland captain. So we start with the biggest possible fixture we can get. Brazil, the greatest team of all time, 4-time champions at this point, I believe. Yes, I think that was a fourth one.
Yep.
We're playing in the first game in Saint Denis, the brand new Stade de France. It's been built for this tournament. All eyes of the world are on Scotland, and we get off to a shocker of a start. Brazil score off a corner after a few minutes. A boy by the name of Cesar Sampaio scores a header, but then Scotland get a wee bit of momentum, and then just before half time, we get a penalty kick. We've lived this moment before, just 2 years at Euro 96, but this time the outcome was different. And Russell, like you preached in the last episode, John Collins should have took that penalty where your wish came true, because up stepped the Gallus John Collins. Taffarel's in goals, he doesn't give a fuck, and he slots that penalty away. He slots it away, mate. But Taffarel, I mean, if VAR was a thing, and then it would have got retaken, Taffarel is practically on the 6-yard line. He comes charging out that goal.
Aye, that's so true. I was watching it back today. Yeah. But the thing is, as well, Collins' penalty is that good, mate. He doesn't even get a sniff. No. Smell the glove, sniff of the glove. See what I did? He doesn't even get that on the ball. Collins puts it in the side netting, mate. The side netting in that corner. And the keeper is saving penalties when they go there, Phil. Do you know what I mean? And I just think Collins showed there's an arrogance to Collins. I think sometimes you need to have that streak as well. I think sometimes, Phil, it's too easy for everyone to be humble and sound and just happy to be here. Well, I think there's enough people that felt they belong there when it comes to the likes of Scotland at major tournaments. And by the way, from a Celtic perspective, you look at Moussa Dembele, Champions League debut, and he's scoring overhead kicks against the unbeaten Pep Guardiola side at that point. Why? Because he felt he belonged on that stage. And I think John Collins was the least surprised person in France, if not the world, that he put the ball past Taffarel. So right choice to do it.
The old gala celebrations, pointing at the back, letting the
I don't mind it, mate.
You'd love it. I loved it, mate. I thought it was great. I mean, Scotland just scored in the opening game against Brazil. I was absolutely jumping for joy at that moment. But sadly, Scotland being Scotland, it had to go wrong somewhere. We've held in the game. We're doing okay. It's getting maybe about 15 minutes to go. Bebeto, I believe it was, Dunga pings a great pass over to the back post. Cafu, brilliant attacking fullback, gets in there, chests it down. Gordon Jury tries to tackle him, but falls over. Cafu hits a shot that Jim Leighton saves, and he palms it right back out into the path of Tom Boyd, who can't do anything about it. It literally hits him in the chest and goes into the net. There's nothing he can do. But Scotland are sunk by an own goal by the hapless Tom Boyd, unfortunately.
I'm going to disagree. I think Tom Boyd fucks up.
Okay, right, okay.
I think you watch it back, I think you've been very, very favourable to him. That's off his chest. I think he's made a motion with his arm. He's panicked because the ball's going past him. He's expected someone to be following him that's over his shoulder to finish it. And his involuntary movement has been to throw like his shoulder. It comes off, I think, almost his arm. And I think if he leaves it, then very easily Brazil could have still scored. So I get why he's done that movement. But I actually think you look back, there's been a slight panic in Tom Boyd's thing. I think he got the unlucky card, yes. And it is unlucky. But I also think it was avoidable what he's done. Do Brazil still score if it goes past Tomboy? That would be the question I would ask. How close was someone, to making a running behind him? I can't picture the scenario perfectly, but do you know what I mean? Like, I'm convinced there was enough warning in Tomboy's frame, I nearly said something else, frame of mind, because we don't want to say state of mind or that, come in a rash. But like, I think he's genuinely, his impulses is kind of took over, and it's been a bit of panic involved. And he's actually, I think it's came more, because I was watching it back today, Phil. I think it's came more off his arm than his chest. I think he's shat it a wee bit.
I see, because when I've watched it back, I've not taken in all that. I've just seen it sort of rebound off him and just thought about, what can you do at a point? But no, that's fair enough analysis. And again, it's one of these things you don't pay attention to when you watch it. Again, was there a Brazil player in the middle? I can't even remember, because Cafu didn't try and cross it. He actually had a shot himself. So it makes you wonder, maybe there wasn't anybody there, because Cafu clearly goes for goal. Jim Leighton saves it and it comes back out and Tom Boyd bundles into the net. But overall, it's a 2-1 loss to Brazil in the opening game. We've gave a good enough account of ourselves. It's not the mauling that we expected. Yeah, we definitely have, because we've still got Norway and Morocco to play at this point. So it's like, okay, but we've still got a chance here. But so we go to Bordeaux for the second game in this one, and it's a young Vidar Risef is involved in this game, and he puts the cross in for Tori Andre Flo's younger brother, Havard Flo, to open the scoring.
I knew both those facts and was like, because I was watching it back today, I was like, I'm going to fucking pull that out the bag that it was up the left wing, a young Vidar Risef, and the cross is Tori Andre Flo's brother. And there you go. You're a bastard, man. Nothing gets by you. Nothing gets by you.
Oh, man.
That's good. Good knowledge, mate. Good knowledge.
Well, Vidar Risef, who signed for us after this World Cup, it was a few months after it. He was he then lost his first signing officially, I think, in like October 98. But yeah, Risef, he gets closer. What position was Risef officially? Because I feel like he was a utility man that played everywhere.
I mean, he was definitely, I've seen him play every single position. Every position. Only maybe no in goals. That's about it. Even then, I bet like if you had like a list, like if a goalie gets injured and the other one gets sent off, who's going to go in just in case? I bet he was number one in that list, mate. I bet you any money.
Yeah. I know he marauders down that left wing, gets a good cross in, and Havard Flo, not Tori Andre Flo. He is in. Cheers, Chunks. Thanks, man. He'll get me at some point. He will. There'll be something. I don't know everything, but no, there's things will slip past me. Don't worry about that. The moment is coming, Russell. Your moment's coming. Don't you worry, mate. But yeah, so Norway have taken the lead. But at that point, it's about a 50-50 game. Both teams had chances. But then Scotland do grab an equaliser. Especially the coach driver. We ain't driving this bus, I'll tell you that. He's not driving this one.
That's good patter. That is good patter.
But yeah, Scotland do get an equaliser. It's a Celtic player as well that gets it. It's Craig Burley. David Weir knocks a big, massive long ball up the park, and it bounces nicely in front of Burley, and he just chips it over the Everton goalkeeper at the time, Thomas Myra, who was in goal for Norway, lobs it over him, drops nicely in the net. In the end, both teams had their chances, couldn't get the win. 1-1 draw, probably a fair result, but it's not a disaster for Scotland, because we're now in a position where we're playing Morocco in the last game. They've only got 1 point as well, but they're not very fancy. They're the outsiders in this group. If we beat them, we'll be on 4 points, because surely Brazil will beat Norway. You've got to imagine that's going to happen. We beat Morocco, we'll go through, no problem at all. But no, the omens were bad right away when Craig Burley rocked up in this game with peroxide blonde hair. I must have been a bet that he must have had where if he scored a goal, he would dye his hair peroxide blonde. But yeah, he walks up. For his troubles, he gets sent off in this game as well for a bit of a shocker, a challenge in the middle of the park. Straight red. But yeah, Scotland proceeds to lose 3-0.
See if you remember, here was my take on it at the time. Correct me if I'm wrong. David Beckham scores for England against a free kick against Colombia.
He does indeed, yep.
Next game has blonde hair. I don't care blonde highlights against Colombia.
Could be, because there's another team that are mentioned later on that they've dyed the whole team
dyed
their hair blonde.
But I am convinced that Beckham dyed his hair blonde for the Argentina game.
Okay.
And then gets sent off. And the same thing happens with Billy. And
The good thing is,
I think Billy's those done it, Phil, to copy Beckham.
maybe. Oh, it's fine.
I think that was. I think Billy was a top player, by the way.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I also think, I know Danielle was in the group chat that she only wanted to watch it because she fancied him. Fair enough. I mean, no, but hopefully when he had his false teeth in, though, Danielle, do you know what I mean? But I mean, Craig Bully, for all his ability, he was one of those folk that I think wasn't in Collins League and didn't have the right to be as arrogant as he was, and probably channeled his arrogance. You've seen it with the punditry at times where he got a wee bit of a name for himself and he became like the prick's prick so quickly. And it was like, I think things go to his head pretty quickly, Phil. Would that be fair? And I reckon that scoring at a World Cup, he's went and dyed the hair because I think Beckham's done. He's put himself on that pedestal.
Ah, okay. Could be something like, because Beckham was big news. I mean, Eminem isn't even a thing at this point. Eminem didn't make his chart debut till 1999 when everyone started dyeing their hair peroxide blonde. But yeah, this World Cup, people are going crazy with the blonde highlights and just peroxide blonde. It's like, but yeah, Craig Bully rocks up in the Scotland team with this one, gets sent off for his troubles in the game as Scotland crash and burn to African minnows Morocco. A certain Mustafa Hadji, who would go on to play for Coventry City, was an absolute worldie of a player at that point. He just tore us apart, and it's summed up nicely by a guy named Hadder who scored the second goal, where he chips Jim Leighton, who's came out a bit too far. Jim Leighton parries it up in the air, and it just drops right down behind him into the net for the second goal, and it's like, oh, Jesus.
It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing how badly he's misjudged it. And then the dive into the net, I think we've seen a wee bit of that aspect from David Marshall, didn't we, last year? Similar sort of vibe, didn't we? A sprawling goalkeeper in his mid to late 30s that is just fucking in no man's land. You know what I mean?
But yeah, again, it's just a typical this could happen to Scotland. But then just to further rub it in, had we beat Morocco, let's say things did go well. Remember I said earlier on, we beat Morocco with 4 points because don't worry, Brazil will beat Norway. No, Norway beat
Brazil 1-1.
2-1.
Oh, Norway beat Brazil.
Aye. Brazil were winning 1-0 to the last 10 minutes,
right.
and Norway scored 2 goals. And there's a weird fact that the only team that Brazil have never, ever beaten is Norway. They've played 4 times. Norway have won twice, and they've drawn twice. So that is Brazil's bogey team. So yeah, even if we had beat Morocco, it wouldn't have mattered because Brazil would have had 6 points, Norway would have had 5, and we would have had 4. So once again, only Scotland can get eliminated in such a fashion. So yeah, it was another stellar Scotland performance.
I think with a wee bit of hindsight as well, though, Phil, right? And it's great having a wee laugh in that, but you look at that group and you go, do you know what? Fair dues to Craig Brown for getting us to 2 major tournaments in a row. We've seen how difficult it is, and I don't think he had the dearth of quality that Steve Clark's got right now.
Agreed. I
don't think he does. I think that squad was as good as that. And yet, for all he did getting us there, I then think this time round you're going, you know, the Euro 96 was about England, Holland, and, you know, okay, Switzerland, you would say, well, they're the team that you're expected, or you've got to try at the very least to get 3 points off.
Yep.
England and the Dutch, that is 2 very, very strong sides. We got, I think, the perfect thing. Do you know what I mean? Because we got the glamour tie, and then we got 2 winnables. And I actually think, with hindsight, Norway and Morocco, even the fact that guys like Yusuf Chipo and Mustafa Hadji all went on to have some sort of Premier League career. I think Hadji was at Coventry and Villa. I think Chipo did the same, I think, Coventry and Villa.
I remember Chipo's name, but I can't remember who he was at Villa. I remember the name.
He went to Coventry initially. The 2 of them went to Coventry at the same time.
Right, okay.
But I just think they were both those teams were there.
For the taking.
Funnily enough, I noticed as well that it was ex-Rangers players with the back line of Norway. Henning Berg and Dan Eggen.
Dan Eggen, yes. Dan Eggen scores in the game against Morocco. They drew 2 each. Norway and Morocco, and Dan Eggen scored in that game. When I was watching the highlights the other day of all the goals at the tournament to just refresh my head, Dan Eggen pops up. I was like, oh my God.
He he was shite.
That's terrible. Yeah, not a sterling signing for them at that stage. But they were signing Egg Washington and stuff at that stage as well. And
They maybe got a thing for there must be quite a lot of Norwegians that have played for the other mob.
I think for both sides of the Glasgow divide, we've had a fair few. Thomas Rogner, Harold Bratback, El Yunusi, Vidar Risef. We have had quite a lot of Stefan Johansson. Yeah, we've been through quite a few Norwegians and all. So Christopher Ayer. Aye, it seems like in Glasgow, Norwegians are definitely in fashion. Definitely love. But we'll move on then to the next topic point. We can forget Scotland. Scotland still haven't returned to a World Cup since. Had won Euros since, and that, as we know, that didn't go well. It went exactly how we expected it to. Typically Scottish. But anyway, we'll move on to our neighbours down south because they had probably I'd say the most controversial game of the tournament, the most remembered game. England v Argentina. This game is absolutely bonkers because everything that can happen in this game happens. Is like if you had a checklist of create the most carnage-filled game possible, you'd probably tick all the boxes on this one because it is mental.
Box office too as well. There was huge build-up to it, huge rivalry, I think, between England and Argentina. You know, there is. And I think actually sometimes, well, I mean, I watched bits and bobs of last night, England-Germany. I'm like, I fucking thought they two were meant to be rivals.
Nope.
Eh? What rivals at what? Tickling each other's balls, you know what I mean? Like, absolute nonsense.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, that's turning into like, you know, when you're told that Man United and Man City's a derby, you know what I mean? It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
But England, Argentina, I think there is a bit of needle there. I know, obviously, Falklands and all that shit. We'll go into all that, but I think there is a bit of rivalry there. And this game, as you say, rightfully, it was blockbuster, mate. I think this is PPV material at a World Cup, isn't it?
Oh God, aye, and it's like the first time they've met at a tournament since the Hand of God at this stage, which was '86 World Cup. So all of that's all getting played again, and England are out for revenge, and even for like superstitious stuff that they do when they beat them in the '66 World Cup. England wore all white, like white top, white shorts that night. So for this game, they came decked out in all white, for superstitious reasons. But yeah, how this game came about, England finished second in their group, amazingly. A group with Colombia, Romania, Tunisia. England didn't even win that group. They finished second after losing to Romania, but they beat Colombia, they beat Tunisia. Argentina topped their group. They had Croatia, Japan, and Jamaica were in their group. But yeah, Argentina won their group. They were in Group H. England were in Group G, second place. So they're playing in Saint Etienne, one of the smallest stadiums as well, which just the way it's came out, the way it's all been scheduled. But hey, if this stadium had been in the biggest one, Saint Denis, it would have easily sold out because, yeah, huge demand to see this game. But yeah, lots and lots of headlines coming out of this one. So we'll just run through the incidents first of all. So Batistuta gives Argentina an early lead with a penalty. Diego Simeone, which would set the tone for the night. Diego Simeone throws himself to the ground when David Seaman grabs the ball at his feet and he kind of theatrically goes down, gets Argentina a penalty. Batistuta converts it, but minutes later, England got the park. Michael Owen gets sandwiched between two Argentina players. Penalty England. Alan Shearer equalises. And then the world seems to stand still. Well, Argentina definitely stood still as Michael Owen picks up the ball in the centre circle. 18 years old at this point, 17, what was he? Something like that, wasn't it? 17, 18? And
17 still 17.
And he just goes on this mazy run, goes past about 4 or 5 Argentina players and just batters into the top corner. Do you remember watching this live, Russell, and your reaction when Michael Owen did that?
Big time, mate. I was straight on Twitter saying I think he's going to make it.
Mate, ahead of your time, mate. Love it.
Aye, that was only person on it. It was great. Nobody used to follow it, mate.
Nice.
There was no toxicity there, you know.
Oh no.
But aye, Michael, and I think it's funny with players because they get evaluated on, their careers over, like a space and time, like the duration of their career, the longevity falls into it, I think, a lot. But I think you need to, like we were talking about with Stephen Hendry, you look how condensed those world titles were, and you go, how fucking good was he in that time? Yep. Okay, his form fell off a cliff. And I think there's a bit of that with Michael Owen in a weird comparison I'm making right now. That see when he was 17 and doing that to that Argentina side.
Yeah.
How good was he as a footballer by then? Did he not win the Ballon d'Or when he was 20 or something? 21.
He won
The
it in
Ballon d'Or.
2001, so you missed a date. So
He was
2001,
born in
what age would he have
79.
been?
He was born in 79,
Aye.
so he'd be 21, 22. He wins the Ballon d'Or. How good was Michael Owen between 17 and 20, 23, 24? I
Unbelievable.
think he was a fucking joke how good he was. Yeah, I don't think he gets in the conversation for many people on brilliant forwards. I don't think he even makes even English fans conversational from him. You go, he was one hell of a player back then. And he, you know, obviously to the rest of the world, Phil, this was Owen's arrival, but he had that season. See, I think he turns 17 like at the very beginning of that season, his impact season. And then I think he's approaching his 18th birthday. He's not turned 18 yet. So at 17 years old, he's turned the Premier League on its head, and he's actually beginning to outshine who I always felt was the more naturally talented by a mile, Robbie Fowler at Liverpool.
Robbie Fowler, yes.
Robbie Fowler at that point, remember though, is only 22, 23.
Jesus. He's nowhere to be seen as well.
What's happening here? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, mate. I can hear you now. I was frozen for a second, but I can hear you now.
Am I back? Am I moving?
Yeah, you're moving, mate.
Happy days. I don't know what's happening, man. But Robbie Fowler was like, I felt the real crazy talent. You know, he was scoring dinks at Old Trafford in that when he was 2021 over Schmeichel, making him look like foolish at times in that. But Owen, I suppose, had more of an impact on the world stage to go and win a Ballon d'Or, to score this goal, either you're discussing against Argentina. Frightening arrival, mate. And yeah, he's a prick. He does my nutting, mate. Right? There's no two ways about it. I also think that counts against him, though, why he's not in the conversation, which is pretty poor. Because for me, Alan Shearer's a complete wanker, and yet they would wax lyrical about him all day, every day. You know what I mean?
Aye, no, you're right. It's mad to think when you compare it to Fowler, because Fowler doesn't have that many England caps, and you think how obscene Robbie Fowler was in the mid-90s, and he's barely got a look in at England, so it's like, how's that even possible? But yeah, Michael Owen, he's had one full season at Liverpool at this point, and yeah, he's blown the Argentina defence away, and I guess it's that he's so young at that point, he only knows how to play one way, and it's just forward. Just get on the ball and just forward, just full pace ahead. And yeah, it's an absolute. I remember watching it live and just being like stunned, because England have gone 2-1 up at this point, and naturally I'm like, oh no, England are going to go on and win this, because Argentina have lost all the momentum. But luckily, Diego Simeone's on the park. He's been a nuisance all night. He wins him a free kick and outside the box just before half time. Juan Sebastian Veron takes a quick free kick, plays it into the path of Javier Zanetti, who I said earlier on doesn't score many goals. Scores another nice goal here, another crucial goal, one of his very few goals for the Argentinian national team. So at half-time, you've barely got a breath. It's 2-2 at the end of the first half, but the second half is when it would all go crazy. So again, that man, Diego Simeone, he's a thorn in the side. Him and David Beckham have a little altercation, a little coming together. And as Diego Simeone's getting up, he kind of puts his knee onto Beckham's back and maybe stands on him a wee bit as he's getting up. And as he gets to his feet, David Beckham flicks his right leg out right in front of the referee, a guy named Kim Milton-Nielsen, big Danish guy. And the referee books Simeone, but he sends off David Beckham. Now, the whole of England goes into meltdown following this World Cup and the subsequent result from this game about the red card. So looking back, at the time, did you think it was a red card? And now looking back, do you still think it was a red card? Or would you think maybe it's a bit soft?
It's never a red card in a million years. Never, ever, ever a red card. It is a flick. It's all it is. It's a bit of petulance, which was showing. I seen more petulance in Simeone rolling about than what I seen in Beckham's flick. I think Simeone, what he does to actually agitate Beckham in the first place, is just as petulant. Why that was a red card. And I tell you what, they fucking turned on him big style for this film. And it's no nice. Burning effigies as Ryan Taylor comes straight in that at Beckham. And I think you've got to give Beckham his due as well. And I don't mind Beckham, but I always quite like
I'm all right. I like David Beckham and all. I love to admire. how he overturned this. Took a massive negative and turned into a hell of a positive. He really did.
That was a strength of character he had at that time.
Mhm.
Again, more facts for you. He's only just turned 23. Now, see, at the time, I'm not appreciating that as a young boy watching the World Cup. I'm just seeing Beckham the prick, right? Because he plays for England and all this stuff, all these wee childish sort of notions. See, when you actually look back, now we're in our mid-30s, how young you are in the head and you've just turned 23, and you're going home to your parents, crying your eyes out, you've let the whole country down, you've ruined everything for your country, and there's burning effigies of you in that. How do you come back for that? The support network you need at that time is obviously crucial, but up here, you have got to be cut for a different cloth than the rest, and you cannot say David Beckham was not of an extremely strong mentality, mate. You know, handsome little bastard as well. It must always help looking in the mirror. Do you know what I mean? Looking like that, he must have been like, I'm gonna be all right. I wish I looked like him. But what I would say is, he absolutely bounced back in a way that is utterly, I just think it's mind-blowing what he went on to do with his career. Where I think you put a 22-year-old, 23, just turned 23-year-old right now. Let's think of one. Who's in the England team that's 22, 23 right now?
Declan Rice.
Declan Rice goes through this. He looks like he probably just wanted to talk in the microphone about it for 3 hours, you know what I mean? And prove that he's a real guy.
Jack Grealish. There's a more David Beckham comparison. Jack bloody Grealish.
Can Jack Grealish handle that, mate?
No, mate. No,
not in a bad way. Not in a bad way. I don't think he can, and I don't mean that as a criticism. I think Beckham deserves a hell of a lot of respect. And Simeone, who again I think is loved in the media, he's one of these other media darlings. For what? For what? What is he so loved for? Anti-football, having a temper and all that. Mike, he was the biggest shite bag ever when he did that. Absolute shithousery. Yeah, okay. It happens against England, and there's a bit you glad that, you know, Argentina do get one over them. But I also say, looking back with hindsight, and taking out your allegiances at that moment in time, Phil, and who you wanted to go through and who you didn't, you know, I think it was a lot of shite. And by the way, shame on the English fans and media who turned on him so savagely. More shame on them, and more fool them to write off someone with the ability of David Beckham. Because
look what he did for the next tournament, the World Cup qualifying against Greece, last minute free kick at Old Trafford. Got to score it, and he fucking picks the top corner, mate. Just finds it, no problem, man. Unbelievable.
And then, of course, the next World Cup meets Argentina again. I'm sure we'll speak about that. But he gets his revenge too, which fair play.
Does. I find it interesting looking at Simeone, like the foreshadowing. Look at him as a manager and look at him as a player. He isn't that different when you look at the personality, the way he sets his team out with the shithouse. He's always been like that. And when you're talking about how he's loved, I think he's loved particularly in this country with the media when it's not against an English team. Because I've seen many Champions League games where you'll get guys like Michael Owen or that tosser Steve McManaman, whoever it is, even when Sky were covering the Champions League, you know, they'll praise Atletico Madrid, or they say they've beat Juventus or something. Oh, you know, an absolute masterclass here from Simeone. But see, when he does it to an English team, they lose their fucking minds. And I think in the back of their minds, they're still annoyed a little bit about this incident. I think that skews them a little bit about Diego Simeone, about what they think of him. Because when he does it to an English team, it's a totally different story. They lose their minds over it. But if they do it to somebody like, you know, as I say, Juventus or Bayern Munich, brilliant tactics there for Atletico Madrid. So, yeah, can't have it both ways, guys, you know. I'm
going to actually bring up Danielle's point here because I think this is spot on.
Oh,
see,
God.
if you look at that, can you imagine if social media was bad? So you think how bad, like, Beckham got it at the time. Imagine that magnified by 1 million. And maybe then that's where you've got to then say, well, could Jack Grealish handle it now? Well, maybe he couldn't handle it now because the absolute, you know, is magnification a word? I'm using it tonight anyway. Magnification of it would be so much even more intense. GIFs of it, memes of it, all over the place. you know what the Twitter hard men are like, mate. You know what I mean? They get behind an anonymous account and they just start typing whatever they want. Beckham back then would have got it incredibly tight, mate. Yep. Incredibly. It would have been horrible. That's actually quite a clever.
That is. I'll give you another analogy. Imagine even further back, if 1990, when Paul Gascoigne, gets booked and misses that final, then remember that whole thing happened. Imagine if like Twitter was around then. I mean, Gaza, knowing that we've seen him go through his mental problems, he would have broke down. But I think a massive thing that was in David Beckham's favour is Alex Ferguson was his day-to-day manager. I think that was a huge thing for him. I think Fergie was the right guy to be mentoring David Beckham at that time. And any other manager, let's say Beckham was playing for Newcastle at that stage, he had Kevin Keegan as his manager. No chance. No, Beckham had the right guy behind him to keep him on the right path. I think Ferguson was a huge factor in how he developed and, shrugged it off eventually. But yeah, I can't even imagine how toxic it would have been if Twitter, if social media had been a thing in 1998. Jesus, man.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, Ferguson is the right mentor to have running your football career day to day at that point. But I think the biggest strength comes through within, Phil. I would always say that as well. Yeah. And I do agree. I think Fergie absolutely massive at this point in time, and what a guy to have. But I think the biggest strength when you go through adversity like that, not that I can relate to it, but I think when you go through it, the biggest strength you need to find is within. And David Beckham proved he's a pair of bollocks, mate. Phil, are we all right to take a 2-minute break? We'll just
of course we are, mate.
I'm busting for a push, mate.
Fair dues, mate. We'll take a 2-minute break and then we'll be right back.
I may as well tell the truth, man. I'm busting, mate. Right, we're back to
comments about me deliberately trying to cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now, and you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan.
Well, hey, there we go.
Sorry about that, man.
Don't worry, mate. You put a break in last week as well, mate. You put a break in as well, so roughly about the same time-ish, because we're kind of ahead of schedule this time, believe it or not. But incredibly, we've not even finished talking about England-Argentina, because this game has still got some more madness to come. Wow. So after all that, we get to full time in the 90 minutes. It's 2-2. Now, last week we talked about the golden goal. I made a mistake. I thought this was just a UEFA-only gimmick. I forgot that FIFA incorporated this as well. So, yeah, this World Cup in the extra time, Sol Campbell scores a goal, which would have been the golden goal, but it turns out Alan Shearer grazed the goalkeeper with his elbow. And as England are running off celebrating, Argentina, shithouse at the extreme, they're playing on. They try and break down the park, but in the end it comes to nothing. the 120 minutes ends 2-2, and we go to penalties. And this is interesting because last week we talked about the Euro 96 penalty shout of England and Germany, and I brought up there was a well-known story that Paul Ince had said, not for me. Paul Ince does step up this time, and he missed this time. I wonder if was the guilty conscience of 2 years ago in his mind, and he thought, no, I'm going to do it this time, but he missed the second penalty.
I think, to be completely honest to you, I think he's turned it down in 96 because he's not confident in these situations. Does it amplify it a wee bit, maybe, Phil? That's in the back of his mind that I should have turned this down again. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how he's even considered for the list. I think once you've turned it down to, at the Euro 96, if I was the manager, I'd be like, you can put your hand up all you want, Paul, but you turned it down 2 years ago. No way am I convinced that you're a good fit for it now, two years later. I mean, it wasn't like in Euro 96, he was a young guy either. He was 28, 29 then.
The governor,
so, I mean, so like by now he's 30. I mean, if you're 28, 29, turning it down, you've not, fair enough if he's 20, 21, and he's now 23, 24, and he's grown up a wee bit, fair enough. But for me, nah. I wouldn't have had him taking one, mate. I think once you've bailed out of that situation, once at a major tournament, that's alarm bells for me that even he might be thinking of the fact that he did,
Yeah, could be something like that. But he's not the one that's always remembered. It's always the deciding penalty that's going to be remembered. And it's poor David Batty for this one. He steps up to take the last penalty. He's got to score to keep England in it. And sadly, he misses. And England are out on penalties again. Argentina would advance on to play the Netherlands in the quarterfinals, which there'll be a little mention of that game coming up because something happened in that game that was quite spectacular. But yeah, Russell, as I said at the end of my notes here, this game truly had everything. This game was fucking nuts.
It was brilliant, mate. It was. See, we're looking back at it as well. I think the fact there's a bit of needle is brilliant, man. I just think a wee bit of needle's good. And then you've got all the wee ingredients to the perfect recipe, Phil, for a great match of football. That is the truth. Yeah, and definitely. All the elements were there, brought together. And I think, as I say, the fact there was maybe a big bit of bad blood between the two of them, I think that adds to it, man. Do you know what I mean?
It does.
Yes, I think it'll probably go down as game of the tournament. But I think there are rivals to that as well, which I'm sure we will be looking at.
Shall be.
Well.
So now we shall move on to the next headline. We always like to talk about the underdogs in these tournaments every time. We're always what? What absurd comment.
I mean, I seem to get it tight, man. I mean, I go for a wee pee, and there it is, a pee with a dodgy squint. Thank you so much, Brown Warrior. When you're not arguing with me about Brendan Rodgers, you are giving us absolute pelters about the way I pee. And don't you be encouraging him, Danielle. Oh, you.
Oh dear, Bhoycie Bus. Yes, so you don't get this on other podcasts. This is the place to be. But yeah, we'll move on to the next topic. I say we love to talk about underdogs every time. So this one is the sucker punch. It's not a sucker punch. It's a sucker punch because this guy, Davor Suker, he defined this World Cup scoring 6 goals, winning the Golden Boot for little Croatia, who of course years later, as the years have gone by, we've realised that Croatia aren't to be called little. They are an absolute superpower when you think about it. They are not to be looked at as underdogs because this tournament, even though they're 7 years old as a country at this point, Yugoslavia's broken up and they have qualified for the first World Cup. They get all the way to the semi-finals and end up in the third place playoff and win it, beating the Netherlands. They, along the way, beat Jamaica and Japan in the group, lost to Argentina. They beat Romania and had a comprehensive 3-0 victory over an ageing German side in the quarterfinals. They then gave France the fright of their lives, taking the lead in the semi-final before Lilian Thuram bailed them out. And then they beat the Netherlands 2-1 in the third place playoff. Mate, Davor Suker, Croatia, how good were these guys, man?
No, mate, that team, I remember I was saying last week, Croatia, I've always, the Swedes are my team, right? And then it was like Croatia, but if my memory serves right, Sweden aren't at this World Cup.
But no, we beat them in the
So,
qualifiers. Yep.
Once Scotland went out, it was like Croatia became this tournament. That was the team I wanted to do the best.
Yeah.
Sucker's a joke at this World Cup, mate. Their
God,
first ever World Cup, isn't it?
This is the first one. They became a sovereign nation in 1991.
Aye.
So this is the first. This is their second major tournament, the first World Cup.
That's right, aye.
Aye.
And, you know, it's honestly, that team, iconic, mate. Sucker, at this point, I think he's as good a number 9, you know, an out-and-out poacher. He is a joke because of his sort of complete variations of finishes, his techniques quality, and he's doing it, as you say, for an underdog team, mate, which is a harder job than doing it at one of the big sides at this point. But I think, as you're absolutely right to point out, you know, they were underdogs then. Little did we know that probably half that Croatian team, okay, they might be playing for a Dinamo Zagreb or a Hajduk Split at this point, or Rijeka, however you pronounce that. But at that point in time, players weren't all dispersed across Europe just as much. Do you know what I mean? Like, they weren't. So maybe just that Croatia team did have all that quality. They just weren't all at the big guns in the top 5 leagues at that time, which you would say most of them are now.
Oh God, like I saw last week when we were talking about Croatia, a comment came up in the live chat at the side, and it's a great question when you think about it. How good would Yugoslavia have been if they'd never broke up? Because Yugoslavia, when it broke up, the countries that were formed were obviously Serbia, Montenegro, Croatia, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Slovenia, and Macedonia. And I always remember Macedonia because in Champ Manager 0102, they're called the FYROM, the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia. Whenever the international fixtures come up, it's who's FYROM? Like, FYROM, who's that? You click on it, it's former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia. Goran Pandev was probably in Champ Manager 0102, wasn't he?
Pandev, yeah.
Aye. Oh, baller. But yeah, well, that's the countries that they would have had to pick for if Yugoslavia had stayed as one nation. So I was thinking through this, I was going, what would be a good sort of time period where they would be super strong? And I thought, see, about 2014, because you would have had like Begovic in goal, Nemanja Vidic was still playing, Stefan Savic, Ivan Perisic, Modric, Edin Dzeko could have been up front along with Mario Mandzukic, Milan Pjanic, a lot of itches in this team as well. And it's just like, you just think if that was like Yugoslavia was still together, so you're sort of looking mid-2000s, that's a strong and frightening team. That really is.
You're right, man. You're right.
Yeah, absolute superpower. I remember years ago, on BBC, they had like a 4-part documentary called Scotland's Game. Do you remember that show, Russell? It was like a Scotland's Game, and it was like breaking down things.
The 4-part series was excellent.
The final part was about the Scotland national team's woes and just like following the Tartan Army. And I remember Stuart Cosgrove popped up at one point and talked about it. And it was a reason he said, and I'd never really thought about it. Scotland used to qualify for tournaments all the time in the 70s, 80s, and through the 90s, right? They were a staple at tournaments. But see, when Yugoslavia and the Soviet Union broke up and you get more nations, that has been incredibly a bit of an effect on Scotland because it's pushed us further. These great nations like Croatia have popped up. You know, so you've, as I say, I just listed off there all the countries that came out of Yugoslavia breaking up, and it's like it just shows you that's like 8 more countries just been added to the qualifying sections for the European ones. So it's like you can't even win. You know, new teams just pop up and push us further down the pecking order. It's quite incredible when you think about it.
That's a good point. It has. I mean, it's breathed a completely different element into world football. The fact that so many strong countries have came from that, you know, like it's expanded the competitiveness massively, whilst you've got the stronger nations like, you know, like Croatia in particular. You would still say there's a sprinkling right through all these other nations that you listed there that you go, they've got players as well, they've got and that's changed the landscape a wee bit of like European qualification, because at the end of the day, when you qualify, even whether it be for a World Cup, it's through a European qualifying format. I would love to see that opened up.
Oh, I would open up some new possibilities. Be interested to see that.
I don't see why it has to be regionalised, mate. You've got your regional tournaments.
Yeah.
Based on a seeding, you can still base it on a seeding format, but open it up. And if that's how it shows that, that's because the clubs have so much power that they wouldn't allow England, for example, to travel to Australia for a World Cup qualifier, albeit I'm sure Big Ange, if he was still there, would have had the better of him, wouldn't he?
He'd absolutely loved that. Just a wee quick point on Croatia before we move on. Do you remember Davor Suker's winning goal in the third place playoff? The outside of the boot shot, it's a daisy cutter, but the spin on the ball, it's like Van der Sar is completely wrong footed as he watches it go past him. And it like just zips along the ground, but you can see the ball literally spinning like that as it's travelling. And it's like, Prozinecki scored the other goal in the third place playoff as well.
Yes, I love it. He's a cult hero, mate. But what I would say about Suker as well, only Henrik could do that drag over the ball round the goalie likes. See if you watch, that was one of Suker's go-to things, mate, was doing the drag over. Even if he was dribbling, he loved to do a drag over. Henrik loved that as well. Very similar styles when you actually think about that drag over thing. Whether it be rounding a keeper, why would that be your go-to? You make an arse of that. I mean, you only need to look at Robert Pires doing it for Thierry Henry for a penalty.
Oh, God, that's right. They try to pass it. Oh,
Scuffs
God.
it. Yeah. So the actual technique to be doing that at full pace and under the pressure these guys are under, it's fair dues, man. Fair dues. Donny boy, I think you're watching about 10 minutes behind, mate. Someone want to tell him.
Well, there's been a few bugs tonight, so maybe, I don't know, maybe it's stalled and at his end, I don't know. It's been a bit weird tonight. There's been some extracurricular activity. Something's messing with us tonight from time to time. Russell freezes every so often. Who knows?
Because Donny, I read the odd comment coming up, and Donny's is completely throwing me. Someone's like, that was fucking ages ago, Donny, mate. But he's now not going to see this till ages ago. So I don't know.
Aye, of course.
He's still going to even see this now.
The video, you may pause the video, but the chat continues live. So yeah, I can throw people off. But we'll move on to the next point. We'll have a wee bit of fun with this one because there's a few whopper sound bites in this World Cup. As I've called it, the commentary curse is the title for this one. Because I say curse of the commentator. There's always going to be a wee memorable sound bite, something that lives long in the mind. So I've got a few that I've picked out here, a few really light-hearted moments. So a guy that's always good for one, an absolute clanger. One would say he loves it. Kevin Keegan. Kevin Keegan had quite a couple of. So we had the infamous Romania game in the group stages where England were 1-0 down to Romania. Now, I'm pretty sure they had a striker called Moldovan, Viorel Moldovan. Did Inverness Cali Thistle have a player that a brother of his or something named Moldovan later on? I'm sure in the mid-2000s, maybe like a relative of his, because it's a very rare name. But Inverness Cali had and it wasn't him because it was
I know who you're thinking of.
Okay.
You are thinking of Marius Nicolay.
Oh, right. I thought it was Moldovan. I was like, what? Is that like a brother? A cousin? Nicolay,
that's who you're thinking of, Nicolay, because he played for Sporting Lisbon. And he did a proper career. He ended up at Inverness for 1 year. I don't know if they're related right enough. But
no, different names. But I had this idea that it was Moldovan was the name for the Inverness striker as well.
That's who you're thinking of because he was proper. Nicolay was a proper player, mate.
Decent, aye.
Proper player. He wasn't like him at Inverness Cali's a joke when you look back, but just one of those folk. His career's went a wee bit off. Viorel Moldovan, if I'm not mistaken, played for Coventry City.
I think he did. I think you're right. It stands out somewhere in the back of my head. I've got a memory of
seeing
that.
Nonce as well.
Okay.
But
he's like the
player, mate.
He's the talisman for Romania up front, but they're beating England 1-0 in this group game. But England are starting to get back into it. They're pushing a bit harder. Glenn Hoddle throws on Michael Owen with about 15 minutes to go. And with 10 minutes left in the clock, Michael Owen snatches an equaliser. And for the next few minutes, England are like all over Romania. They're pushing really hard. And Kevin Keegan, famously on commentary, says to Brian Moore, I'll tell you what, Brian, there's only one team going to win it now for me, and it's England. He literally says that as a long ball goes up to Dan Petrescu, who takes a touch, which wrong foots Graeme Lasso, and then he slots it under David Seaman to win it for Romania in the 90th minute. Kevin Keegan, because of the commentator, strikes again. I can vividly remember watching that game when he said that. Oh, there's only one team going to win it now,
That is
Brian.
hilarious. That is hilarious.
And of course, in the game England-Argentina that we spoke about, the penalty shootout, the famous one, David Batty's coming up. Kevin Keegan's management at Newcastle for years. Brian Moore, Kevin, do you back him to score? Yes, and then he missed.
That's brilliant. That is brilliant.
Aye.
That is a tough one, though. Why would you ask a commentator?
And,
Do you back him to score?
Yes, it's how like, you know, like he was so confident in it, yes, and then he just missed it. It was literally as soon as he said yes, that's as soon as he struck the ball and yep, missed it. But this one always stood at my eyes. I remember watching this live, and Jimmy Hill had an absolute corker over on the BBC. It was the all Kevin Keegan and ITV having some shockers on the BBC. So Romania have beaten England. They're going into the last group game against Tunisia, and again, must have lost a bet, won a bet, I don't know. The whole team have decided to come out with peroxide blonde hair. Because again, 1998, I don't know.
Surreal.
Yeah, even Georgie Hadji's rocking like a blonde hairdo. But Jimmy Hill in the studio, like him, Alan Hansen, and Des Lynam are all in the studio, and they're all looking at them all do training, warming up. And Jimmy Hill says, maybe they've done it to make it easier seeing each other on the park. To which Alan Hansen and Des Lynam both laugh at him and go, "That's why they wear the same kits, Jimmy." And he's like, oh, yeah, of course. How silly of me. Yeah, why do you think they all wear the same kit? Make it easy to see each other. But yeah, that one always stands out for me. But the main reason I like to get this in here to analyse some commentary quips, the BBC decided, Russell, at one point during, I don't know what game it was, I don't know if it was maybe the highlight show, but they decided that Robbie Williams would be a good idea to come into the studio. And he's in the studio with a certain Martin and Neil. Russell, do you want to tell the viewers, if they've not seen this, what happened? What exactly went down when these two people met, when Martin and Neil and Robbie Williams collided?
There is an awkward room. Am I right in thinking that the presenter is a very young Gary Lineker?
It could be, yes.
Because I know Des Lynam did a lot of it. I think it might be, maybe it is Des Lynam actually. And he says, I'm in the room with two idols, and whatever has possessed Mr. Williams to turn to Martin O'Neill, the king of the klaxon, my absolute, and he says, two idols? No, he's just idle. As in IDLE. The importance of being idle. It was sung by Oasis a few years later. Who the fuck do you think you're talking to, Phil McGinlay? Do you know what I mean? That's the... And you can see Martin O'Neill is... But this is what I love about O'Neill. We were talking about the Cannavaro and Vieira thing last week.
Yes.
Again, do you know what it is, though? O'Neill preempts Robbie Williams might say something silly to me. He has it already, mate. It's lined up, the comeback. He has already got this in the bank, ready to be delivered with that way Martin O'Neill does that. It's almost hard to work out how offensive he's being, because Martin O'Neill says, well, that's very funny. Very funny you say that, Robbie, because I've got to give you credit. Compliment. I've not got the quote in front of me. I'm paraphrasing as always, Phil. But he says something like, I've got to give you credit because I very much doubted that when Take That split up, you would go on to do very well. It's along these lines, he said.
Yeah.
And he says, because let's be honest, you can't write, you can't play guitar, you can't sing. I thought Gary Barlow was going to be the one who did well. But I've got to tell you, that Angels song was excellent. Yeah. And then he sort of leans over, and I think Robbie Williams says something like, oh, and your team were brilliant last year. Some wishy-washy, terrible comeback, which means it is game, set, and match Martin O'Neill. So Martin O'Neill just turns and puts his hand out and shakes Robbie Williams' hand. And I'm like, fuck you, Robbie, though. You know, you should not. At that point in time, Robbie Williams was making a bit of a habit of saying things to people that could take him to school in the banter stakes. Liam Gallagher whilst I may love Liam Gallagher, I'm not being overly biased here. It is a fact. Took Robbie Williams to school.
Yeah.
I think the Q Awards followed only 2 years later, Phil. And I think at the Brits, Robbie Williams had another Martin O'Neill moment where he decided to challenge Liam to a celebrity boxing match at the Brits when Liam Gallagher was in France at the time playing with Oasis. Of course, they end up at the same award ceremony a couple of months later, and Robbie collects his award and says, "And tonight I'm just going to keep my mouth shut." Because at that point, Liam's heckling him, going, "Come on," like that, say something. And he chooses to say nothing. But to do it in the same room to Martin O'Neill is very, very foolish. Yeah. And again, guys, if you've not seen it on YouTube, Google that on YouTube.
You've done really well to recapping the quote. I've actually got it written down here, but you've nailed pretty much all the points. But he says you've done really well because I thought you'd struggle after Take That. I really did. For anybody who can't play, who can't write, who can't play guitar, I thought you'd really struggle. Gary Barlow probably kept the band together. And it's at this point that Alan Hansen senses that Roy Williams is fuming, and Hansen talks over him and is like, he says something, and then Roy Williams kind of goes, "Oh yeah, other than that, what have I done?" He tries to go along with it a wee bit, but you can see he's fucking fuming. He is raging, man. He's been put right in his place.
I actually didn't know I could have just read it out for the. I've literally.
It's all right.
I've got it.
The gremlins, mate. The gremlins are all over the place tonight, mate.
I was trying to show you my laptop. Right, wait a minute.
Oh, DDB.
Hey, this is my microphone I'm pulling out here, by the way. Nothing else. Right, fucking Jesus. Fucking Christ. Right. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I hear you just fine, mate.
Am I back in the room?
You are back in the room, mate.
What I was going to say was, yes, I do remember Alan Hansen coming in. I could have read, though, your exact quotes about Martin O'Neill. But Alan Hansen says, "You know what a wonderful talent he is," or some bullshit like that.
Somewhat, aye.
But I am sure Robbie Williams does say, actually, he says to O'Neill, "Oh, and you had a great season last year."
Does.
Yeah, it's signing, but it's a wishy-washy, terrible return to serve, mate. You know, your return to serve to O'Neill has to be up there. Otherwise, he's just going to go, "I knew he'd be cannon fodder," you know what I mean?
The thing is with Martin O'Neill, he is a prime example of you don't judge a book by its cover, because I feel like Martin O'Neill has had many moments over the years in punditry situations where all the guys around him think they can just take the piss out of him. We talked about the Cannavaro and Vieira one. Also, Adrian Childs, that bell end had a pop at him in that altercation with Vieira, because he says something like, "Oh, you know, I could just imagine you in a wall, you know, a free kick wall, Martin, you know, with your glasses on and, you know, little guy." And he's like, well, the man that you see right now before you is obviously an older gentleman. When I was younger, I didn't wear my glasses and all that. You know, really simple. It's not even like witty or anything. It's just a really simple analysis. It's like Adrian Childs just went in to try and get a bite, and it's like, an idiot. And then, of course, he moves on to Cannavaro and Vieira, and it's like, you know, I've got 2 European Cup medals. How many have you guys got? And I'm sure, I don't know if it's this tournament or maybe it's Euro 2000, but him and Alan Hansen had an awkward moment where Hansen would always talk over him. So like Des Lynam would throw a question to Martin O'Neill, and Alan Hansen would be like, "Oh, can I just tell you? Can I just come in here?" And eventually Martin O'Neill is just kind of sitting like that thing he does, and he goes, "If he would just let me finish," you know, I love that he never looks at them. He's just kind of sitting like that. I definitely remember it. I definitely remember him and Alan Hansen had a moment, and it was like, he put him in his place and all, but I just love how O'Neill never even looks at them sometimes. He'll just be sitting like that.
Oh, he's good at that. Yeah. He's good at that. Oh, he doesn't miss. That's the thing. I love that about Mr. O'Neill. But I don't know if I'm sure I've said this in the bus 17 times, but you know, this is a guy who walked out before the cameras go live at his first Celtic press conference, walks into a packed media room and just says, probably with the glasses slightly lower, "I've got a very long memory." That's all he says to them. And I know that for a fact because a certain journalist told me, you know. And he says that set the tone. He has basically told them, fuck with me this season, like the way you've tried to piss all over the rest of anything to do with this club. We'll see what happens. I've got a very long memory, and I just think it's quality. Pato comes in, by the way, and he says Hansen feared O'Neill in debate. I think there was an element of that.
Yeah,
I remember Gary Lineker absolutely. I know he's a Leicester kind of fan as well, isn't he?
Yep.
But he really did. You could see he looked up to Martin O'Neill, didn't he?
Totally.
He really did. And Martin O'Neill brought something, I think, very different to the punditry game, that maybe a bit of a square BBC took a bit from Phil. And, you know, since then, I think he was, you know, you look at Roy Keane in the Sky Sports studio. Now, Martin O'Neill wasn't quite the same as Keane, but I think he was very box office in the same sort of way that he could be scything in a put down. He could be extremely humorous in the same tone.
Yep.
And I think he was the one that commanded the room. I don't think there's that big a difference between what O'Neill did with the BBC at these tournaments, 98, Euro 2000. I think he went ITV for the later World Cups.
Yep.
Than what Roy Keane brings to a post-match Premier League game on Sky. I don't think the apple has fallen very far from the tree with Brian Clough with these two guys, mate. And I think their personas have been very much influenced by that same manager that they both played under in two completely different eras, of course. And I think it both shines through that O'Neill and Keane are quite a dynamic and an unmissable duo, I would say.
Further, I was going to say there's very Brian Clough, and he links the two of them when you think about it. And obviously the two of them work together as well in the Ireland squad, so they've got a close relationship. But yeah, both of them played under Brian Clough in different eras. But I see a lot of the put downs that Martin O'Neill does, particularly a lot of Brian Clough. If you've never seen the Brian Clough interview when he's got sacked by Leeds United, and he goes on ITV that night with Don Revie literally sitting right next to him, the former Leeds manager. And he's not afraid.
I'm having a couple of Don Ravies tonight.
Hi. And but mate, he is not afraid to just basically stick it to Don Revie, you know, and the two of them have like it doesn't get like heated, like shouting at each other, but it's just that way he just cuts them down without having to like get aggressive like Martin O'Neill would do. And it's like, oh, it's Brian Clough all over. You can see the influence in O'Neill, and even Keane to this day as well. You can see how Brian Clough's had a lasting effect on the two of them. But yeah, I could listen to Clough all day as well, looking at old interviews of him. Like,
they're brilliant.
I hate the brilliant, man. So for any of the younger viewers out there, if you haven't heard of Brian Clough before, that's your homework for the next episode. Go and search some Brian Clough interviews. Honestly, you'll see the Martin O'Neill similarities. You will see them. It's phenomenal, like how he just can cut people down without, you know, doesn't need to be that witty. You know, it's just so simple for him at times. But yeah,
but I think that is his wit. I think his wit very much. I see the other thing with these guys. These guys that hold rooms, right? They hold rooms.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you another example about Martin O'Neill not looking at the camera or the person he's talking to, but in the other way, Phil. So he's not. I don't know how this has turned into another Martin O'Neill bus journey, by the way. I am obsessed. The King of Kings last league game. Remember, he's been in bits and he's been bubbling.
That's right,
And Chick Young's interviewing him, and then Martin O'Neill decides, which you never see, player and manager are doing the interview together in the tunnel. Wait, go tell me when that ever happens. Doesn't happen. No. Martin O'Neill has done that deliberately. Firstly, to show Henrik his support. Secondly, that presence, that, you know, and he looks down at the ground. As he says, well, let me tell you something. He has just been magnificent. He is. And then as Henrik is, I think, given the champagne, all you see is Martin O'Neill not looking at Henrik, but continually saying, sensational player and a sensational man, as he's looking down at the ground and walking away. And it's like, but I think it holds more power.
Yeah.
Like, it makes you feel like, I don't know, like that would make you feel 10 foot tall when he's saying that. It's quality.
It's great man management. It's brilliant man management. You can see Larson's in bits, and he just takes it upon himself to come in there, and that helps him to get through. But yeah, Brilliant moment.
And I agree with balls to the walls. 87. O'Neill did do an interview with Peter Martin recently on that PLZ. Peter Martin just fucking annoys me. I'm not gonna lie here, right? He just annoys me. He's a smart ass. He thinks he's best pals every player. He's just an irritating little twat at times, to be honest with you. Good commentator though back in the day. But he does an interview with O'Neill recently, Phil. It's very good. You should watch it. It's very good. It was recent. And he's not wearing glasses.
Okay.
So he looks even more insane, mate, because he's staring not at Peter Martin, he's just staring into like space, like in a trance when he's talking. Brilliant, man.
I'll put that on my homework list then, seeing as I'm handing out homework to people here. Before we move on to the final, cheers, guys. Aye, thanks, man. When it ends. Don't worry, mate. We'll be back next week anyway, man. This is good. This bus doesn't stop, mate. We'll be at Euro 2000 next week, man. So, and there'll be a lot of Henrik Larsson chat on that one. But a lot of Martin Wheel chat tonight. A lot of Henrik Larsson chat to come next week. But anyway, before we go on to that'll turn into Martin Wheel chat. Yeah, because that was just someone that Martin Wheel was appointed. So we'll find a way to talk about it. Of course we will. But before we got on to the very controversial final, because there's a lot going on in that as well, let's say we love some of our favourite game and goal. So mine favourite game is, I'm wearing an Italy top tonight because I have to talk about him. This is Roberto Baggio's tournament swan song. He comes back after the 94 World Cup, and it's a game against Chile in the group stages. And I love at the World Cup when you see teams that you haven't really experienced before, and especially at this time in my life, Chile, I've not seen them in any tournament. They went to the World Cup 94. But a team that's up against a team with a big reputation, and they play with no fear. They're just like, we'll fucking go at you here. Because Italy take the lead in the game. Brilliant goal from Christian Vieri to open the scoring, where Nesta, I think, pings a long ball up, and Baggio takes one touch and passes it right into the path of Vieri. He slots it away. But then Chile just come to life, and they're like, nah, we're not going to do that. Marcelo Salas busts on the scene and announces himself to the world stage and scores 2 goals to put Chile 2-1 up. I always remember it very vividly because the coach on the sideline, he had like a Colombo-style trench coat on. He's absolutely loving it when they go 2-1 up. He's pure passionate, and it's just like when you watch it, it pure pulls you in. His enthusiasm comes through the screen. I don't know. I can't remember that part.
I'm sure he smoked at some point during that too. I'm sure.
Well, it was the 1990s. Yeah, you could get away with it back then. But yeah, the energy of it comes through the screen and really captivates you. And even though I obviously like Italy because I'm a love for Baggio, I'm kind of rooting for Chile, but it's like, good on you. But in the end, with a few minutes to go, Italy get a last-minute penalty, maybe like 2-3 minutes to go, penalty kick. Up steps Roberto Baggio. The headlines are written. People are ready to say, he's going to choke again. But no, he slots the penalty away, makes it 2-2. Goes on to have quite an okay tournament. He scores another goal against, I believe, Austria in the group stages. And then he's inches away from scoring the winner against France in the quarterfinals. But that was his final tournament. But a great game, and Marcelo Salas, as I say, him and Zamorano up front were an explosive partnership. But how good was Marcelo Salas? Do you remember him?
Well, I think it's again when it was Serie A was so dominant, mate.
Oh, God,
Serie A was such a dominant league then. I mean, that was Salas was he Lazio at this point, I believe. But this was before he went.
He goes to Lazio after this, and then transfers to Juventus a couple of seasons later.
Years later, and then Zamorano. Was he at Inter
this
point?
He's at Inter Milan at this point. He scored in the UEFA Cup final before the World Cup. Yeah.
I mean, that front partnership was unreal. It was just another example of Serie A right at that moment in time, having the world's best players.
Do you hear a really fun fact about Zamorano? You might know this one. He was so annoyed when Ronaldo came and took his number 9 shirt that he had 1+8 on his back. They gave him the number 18 shirt, but he likes wearing number 9. And it was 1+8. He had a wee tiny plus sign in between. Because the first season that Ronaldo joined Inter, he had the number 10 shirt. But then Roberto Baggio signed for Inter the season after that. So they had Baggio, Zamorano, Ronaldo. So they gave Baggio the number 10 shirt. Ronaldo moved to number 9 and Zamorano lost his number 9. And he wasn't happy about it. So he had 1+8 because that's 9. So it's like, wow, numbers mean so much to some players. There you go.
Aye, and see with Baggio, by the way, just quickly, obviously, I thought you were going to say about his penalty, mate.
his penalty is
It's
that close to being saved.
But that's not the point.
Hmm.
It's the bollocks, mate. He is the symbol
Oh,
of the 94 World Cup missing that penalty. The 98 World Cup in the opening match of that tournament for Italy, he takes one. And that's not a penalty shootout. This is, he is the number one penalty taker. I think that mentality, mate, is fucking incredible.
It's a winner mentality. And the thing is, I said it in the 94 one, and I'll say it again to anyone that's, not seen it yet. On Netflix, there is a Roberto Baggio biopic. I suggest you watch it. It is a thoroughly good watch. The 94 World Cup is obviously most of the film, but it's the bit after that where they deal with him later in his career. They've actually got somebody playing Giovanni Trapattoni in the film. They've actually cast somebody to play Trapattoni, which is quite good because he was the manager at the 2002 World Cup. And Baggio was having a good spell at Brescia at that point in his career, and promises were made to him that, hey, if you're fit and you're playing well, you could go to the 2002 World Cup. In the end, it didn't happen, but it's quite funny when he goes to meet with Trapattoni, and I'm like, wow, somebody's actually been cast as Giovanni Trapattoni in a film. But the guy that plays Roberto Baggio in it, he's his absolute doppelganger, especially when he's older Baggio. On? It's on Netflix. It's called The Divine Ponytail. It's actually called that. It's a Netflix. Netflix actually made the film. It's not Netflix. Like it's been, but it's definitely worth watching, man. Look it up. And as I say, when you see the guy as Roberto Baggio, when he's got the goatee and he's got the curly hair, the ponytail with the braids in it and stuff like that, Jesus, man, it's like looking at the actual guy himself. Surreal, mate. But I would thoroughly recommend watching it. And I say he's my footballing hero. I waxed lyrical enough about him in the 94 video that we did. But Russell, what is your favourite game from this tournament?
Got to be, mate. It's got to be the Holland Argentina. I nearly said Holland Brazil again, but I just think that Bergkamp gives us the moment, and I just think that the thing is with these games when you're young, you don't take in a full 90 minutes and it absorbs you. I think the Argentina-England focus that we did was fair, and in hindsight, that probably was the best game of the tournament. It probably was. So then you've got to kind of adapt it. Now, there's a couple though, because I was more invested in the Croatia-France game.
Oh yeah, semi-final.
No doubt. I was gutted. It was Ladic. I remember his name last week. It was Ladic who was in goals, and I thought this guy looks about 100 years old, but he's fucking brilliant. And I was probably more invested in that when I was gutted. I think who was it? Anyway, it doesn't matter. But I think you look for moments in football that you'll never forget. And I think that raking pass up to Bergkamp and then Bergkamp does that shit. I think you can combine that with the best goal of the tournament, and that adds to, for me, the best game, because Holland were meant to be not winning that match, mate.
Yep.
They were not. And I think there's still... I think with Bergkamp as well, like I said last week, with the Holland-Brazil game, I think, I could be wrong, but I think there was a bit of, we go again, in 4 years' time, and we're not going to lose that next really tight one against a higher reputation nation, if you will, and fair play. But I think you can almost tie them both in, because... I think I was more excited about Croatia playing France. And I was more excited about the Scotland games in the group stage.
Yep.
But I would say the Holland Argentina, that was your wee Bhoycie bonus, if you like. When you went, oh, this is just totally delivered. And I can still look back now and say I genuinely didn't care who won, which I also think is very interesting when you watch football, Phil. Because I think quite often we'll be saying, if we did this for every tournament going forward for the next 40 years, we're going to pick and reflect on our favourite game being a team deep down before it started. And it doesn't always need to be Scotland, by the way. I just mean we will have picked a team before that we really wanted to win it. And that's why it sticks in our memories. Whereas I can't deny it. I feel that with Holland and Argentina, didn't matter to me who won. And that's why it sticks out a wee bit, that emotional investment wasn't quite there. But the quality and the drama and the genius was. And I think the Dennis Bergkamp goal is in footballing terms, a JFK moment.
Yes, I would agree with that. I generally put it up there as well. It is phenomenal. I've talked again about Bergkamp. I've never seen a player with such a good first touch. Frank de Boer picks up the ball. He's about just inside, not inside his own half. He's maybe about midway between his own box and the halfway line. He just looks up and he pings maybe a 60-yard pass, and it's coming over Dennis Bergkamp's shoulder. So he's watched it. He's got Roberto Ayala, who at this point is one of the best centre-backs in the world, marking him tight. He's watched it, drops over the shoulder, takes one touch, he stretches for it. He literally jumps up and stretches for it with his right foot, takes a touch, steadies himself, but that one touch causes Ayala to completely not lose his footing, but he just runs completely in the wrong direction. And he just squares himself up and with outside his right foot, just pings it right in the top corner. And it is absurd. I mean, it's my favourite goal. It's obviously your favourite goal as well. It's iconic, and it is a JFK moment. It is one of those. Do you remember the Dennis Bergkamp goal? And
what was the minutes on the clock?
Oh, it was like the 89th minute. It was like right at the end of the game, wasn't it?
Let's take that into consideration.
Yeah.
Let's start taking context into it, and you start going, holy fuck. That was World Cup quarters.
Quarterfinals.
Quarterfinals,
He's had the composure to do that.
Right? And the last minute.
I know.
And by the way, bless Frank de Boer, because, after Chris Sutton threw him about like a wee ragdoll before scoring the best chip you've ever seen, apart from Hendricks. But that chip against them, and you can't believe that's the same Frank de Boer that Chris Sutton just toys with, mate. Just, there's a shoulder, mate. You've had one of those. I know you think Ayala's hard, but watch this. Boom. See you later, mate. Honestly, just Americans boys then. But you're right. That pass for Frank de Boer is outstanding, to be fair. I mean, he did have a pretty decent career, we'll have to say as well, didn't he?
Aye, that's true. He did play for that good Ajax team in the 90s that won the Champions League. Barcelona as well, yeah. So quite a heavyweight CV, that one, with those two teams on there. But yeah, it's an absurd goal to score. And Dennis Bergkamp would just become synonymous with that in his career. We talked about the one against Leicester, the one where he completely ends Matt Elliott's career with that one touch. Matt Elliott can't get near him, just side foots up into the top corner. There's the one against Newcastle, where the Greek defender Dabizas gets a bit too tight to him. He takes one touch with his left foot and it goes in that direction around Dabizas while he runs round the other way and just steadies himself again and just slots it past. The guy is an absolute genius, one of the best first touches I've ever seen a footballer have. He's absurd, but that goal, it's iconic, mate. Absolutely iconic. It's something else, man. It truly is a standout moment from this World Cup. Everybody remembers it. So, Dennis Bergkamp, man, unbelievable. And if you haven't seen it, if you're one of the people who's watched this and hasn't seen it, then what's wrong with you? You need to watch it. You need to find it. You've got to see it. It's unbelievable. So, yeah, definitely got that. But now, we'll get to the final, the very controversial final. The
very controversial final, mate.
So, France are playing Brazil, the host nation, against the holder. So, that's probably the perfect storm. That's what you want, France, who've never won the World Cup at this point. And they're, playing in front of their own fans against Brazil. Ronaldo, R9, he has pretty much spearheaded Brazil to this final. They are a good Brazil side. They've still got guys like Rivaldo, Denilson, Dunga, Cafu, a lot of big names. Bebeto was in this team. Romario didn't go to this World Cup, but Bebeto did. He was at the 94 with the baby rocking the cradle.
World Cup, and that's him from 94. And I thought, see, when I watched a bit of the World Cup back, I thought that's class that Bebeto was there. But where was Romario, Phil?
As far as I know, he didn't get picked, but something in my head tells me that Brazilian fans wanted Romario to get picked, but he was maybe too old in the coach's eyes. But he was still doing bits. 32.
32 sounds.
There you go.
Bebeto was older than him.
Weird. Don't know why, because Romario was easily one of the best strikers in the 90s as well. Don't know if it was a falling out maybe between him and the coach. Who knows? It's a strange one. But imagine they had Romario, Ronaldo, and Bebeto there. Maybe if Romario was available for that final, given what happened, maybe the outcome could have been different. Who knows? But in the end, it's a comprehensive victory for France. They absolutely steamroller Brazil 3-0. Zinedine Zidane This is his coming of age moment. He scores 2 goals in the final. Emmanuel Petit scores a late goal. Desailly gets sent off midway through the game, but it didn't make any difference because Brazil were an absolute shell of what they'd been up to that point. And the main reason for that is the biggest talking point is what happened before the game. Now, I remember tuning into this game. The World Cup final will be broadcasted on ITV and BBC simultaneously. So I remember I went on BBC that night and I was watching that. I remember as soon as we went on the air, Des Lynam began talking about there's a lot of confusion in the stadium here. We've had a team sheet given out and Ronaldo doesn't start. And then 15 minutes later, they said, no, we've got a revised team sheet. Ronaldo does start. And it was a kind of back and forth. Nobody was really sure what was going on. There was a lot of stories going around the stadium. They were going to like John Motson in the commentary box. What's he heard? Nobody had any definitive answers. In the end, Ronaldo walked out on that park with his Brazilian teammates, but he was not in that game at all. He was just nowhere to be seen. Didn't look interested. Couldn't get in the game. And say Zinedine Zidane just decided to go into end boss mode and just absolutely destroy Brazil. And Zidane himself is one of the best number 10s I've ever seen in my life. And it is his moment. But yeah, you've got a perfect yin and yang here for this, where you've got one guy has an absolute, this is his moment, his coming of age. And the other guy who everyone expected was going to be the one that would single-handedly win his country the World Cup. It's a freakish moment. There's a lot of stories behind it, Russell. To this day, do we actually have a definitive this is what happened moment, or is it still being kept secret to this day?
Ronaldo did an interview with Gary Lineker not all that long ago.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, did you know Ronaldo speaks fluent English?
I did actually. I've seen him do interviews in English. I have seen that.
Like, for such a big lazy bastard, you never have thought.
Yeah.
I was just like, he'll have spent his time out off the field just partying, I never expected that, mate. But anyway, so Gary Lineker's sort of saying, what happened? And do you know what happened? But he admits that he had the seizure.
Okay.
He admits that it was obviously a huge impact on the final. Then he's asked, why did this happen? He says, no one to this day still knows. And Gary Lineker then decides to, sort of push it a wee bit. And not about it. He says, do you think it could have been like nerves? Do you think it could have been the pressure? And it's quite funny because Ronaldo instantly doesn't deny that. He said potentially, maybe. But then he goes on to sort of say, people don't understand with the World Cup when it's Brazil and you're in it, that when the game finishes, the attention doesn't stop. It's the same every minute, every night, every day, whether we're playing or not. He says the pressure is unbelievable. Yeah. That tells me there may have been a bit of the weight of the world on his shoulders and maybe an anxiety attack, a panic attack. But then there's other stories that actually the night before he'd been found whiting in his room.
Okay.
Apparently he'd whited in his room the night before and it had been sorted. Okay. And then there was obviously the fact he was on these certain painkillers that cause side effects, minor side effects or potential side effects. Just think all these things say. So it's easy to read into it, go, well, he had that. But I think they were saying like, could cause dizziness, headaches, etc. But he obviously needed them because I think, even then his knees were probably, he played a lot of football by then. He was approaching his 22nd birthday, Phil. And I think he had, even by that point, been one of those guys who's probably played nearly 200 professional games. And I think as a heavier set lad, that's more pressure on you to try and stay fit, if you know what I mean. Like, he wasn't born like a Michael Owen, for example. He's just got knees maybe the weaker stuff. But I think Ronaldo, when you look at how quickly he kind of did, he did become a bigger size, I would say, almost the second he stopped playing. If you've been battling that, you only need to ask John Hartson. John Hartson, a more close home example, used to say, the thing is, he goes, folk think that I've been eating badly. I don't. He goes, but I could look at a cheeseburger. He goes, put on half a stone. He was like, other guys on that team ate probably worse diets than me. He was like, but your metabolism and things. And I wonder if Ronaldo was one of those people that by the time 98 had came around, that the volume of games he played, he needed these painkillers to try and keep his knees all right. And then I think, obviously, the weight of the world on his shoulders. The other interesting angle about it, and I don't really subscribe to this, but the other interesting angle is that Nike had the final say. There was an 80 million.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've got this. Oh, there was rumour of you do. I'll let you read that out, mate, before I go. And
when you were talking in the interview, that was going to be my question. Did he ever address, because with all the things that you've just said that he admitted to, and obviously the Brazilian coach knows this, and he's been found being sick and that, why was he still allowed to go out and play? Did he confirm anything about the rumours that, I say back a few years later, some rumours came out that Nike were like, he's got to play because he's the poster boy of our brand. He's the poster boy of the Brazilian team, whose kit was made by Nike as well. And it was like, was he forced into it by sponsors? Because if I'm the coach of the Brazilian team, and even though he is the best striker, but I can see he is physically not ready for this. He's mentally not there. He's vomiting. It's like, I've got to do what's right for the team, and I can't play him. But they still put him out there. So it's like, who made that decision? How did they come to that decision? It's mad.
It is. The rumour was that apparently there was two sides to it. That Ronaldo was the highest paid Nike ambassador, if you like. And they told him, look, you're going to lose your sponsorship deal if you don't play that final. The other one is Brazil got $80 million at the time or something for their Nike deal. And that was on the basis that if Ronaldo is there, he has to play.
Right, okay.
So, and apparently it all changed on the hour before. Obviously, Edmundo's in the starting lineup. I don't know how much I don't know how much I subscribe to it all, Phil. But what I would say is, from the sponsorship conspiracy side of it, it was Nike versus Adidas as much as it was anything else.
So it was, France for Adidas,
And if you were to indulge slightly in the fact Nike might have had a bee in their bonnet that the best player in the world isn't playing, then I would signal you to look at the fact that it's a rivalry you don't want to really lose out on. You don't want Adidas with Zidane, and then Nike without Ronaldo. So there is a side to that, but I do believe. I think he's had a funny turn. I think the pressure and the anxiety has played a factor, but I think he's had a funny turn. He was forced to play a game, or he probably wanted to, by the way. Play a game that he shouldn't have. Yeah.
So overall, looking at the way the final went and looking at how the tournament went, France deserved winners, or do you think it should have been Brazil's and it was just a bad night because of the Ronaldo thing? Because France were good. We can't take away Zinedine Zidane. Unbelievable in this final. He absolutely bosses the game, and he would go on to boss many, many games for Juventus, for Real Madrid. He scores one of the best goals you'll ever see in a Champions League final. He single-handedly drags an aging France side to the 2006 final. The guy, on his day, he was quite a big, stocky guy, but I've never seen a guy so graceful on the ball, just how he glided past people, despite being quite, physical. And it was like, oh, this guy's unbelievable. But so France deserved winners in the end.
Yeah, I mean, you always deserve it if you win it. I think you always deserve it. But I would say, if I was French, I'm like, get it right up. Yeah, I've won the World Cup. But I think there would be a bit of me at the back of my head that would go, we didn't play that real Brazil team. Because see, when it's minus a guy that's as iconic and as defining as what Ronaldo is. That was the thing, he defines matches. He defines a team. He defines scorelines, matches. He is the phenom, El Phenom. He really is a different brand. And I think a real Ronaldo, fully fit, you'd rather have beaten Brazil with that than a guy a bit spaced out and not really, he wasn't in the game at all. Would you be taking loads of credit for playing your part and keeping Ronaldo quiet? If I was a defender, I would. Is it the reality? Probably not.
Probably not. But of course, Russell does love a good redemption story. So a little spoiler, when we get to 2002 World Cup, Ronaldo will have his redemption story, and that celebration is very important when we get to 2002 and 2 episodes.
I'm doing that all right, actually. I think I've got the gist of that, mate.
No, you wrote me off, but yep, 2002 World Cup, the redemption story we were all waiting on will happen. So that wraps up the 98 tournament. Now we will end on the trivia. So we've got 2 sets of trivia tonight because Bhoycie asked me to pick 5 players for Date of Bhoycie has now returned. If you're a Champ Manager stream fan, Bhoycie, you know he's got this freakish ability to just rattle off years of players' buffs. So I've picked 5 players. You've definitely heard of them. You've definitely heard of them. So the first one is Aldair, Brazilian defender.
Oh, shit, that is tough. You're Aldair 66.
Oh, mate. 56? Did you say 56 or 66?
66.
56.
No,
yep,
he's
56.
not.
Aldair. That's how we look. Let's take it to VAR.
Aldair was playing at 42 years old at the World Cup.
That's
you
how
stop your nonsense. Stop it, Phil.
Aye. Do you know what it is? I've typed it wrong. It's 65. I put it in the wrong way. But hey, so well done. You're right. Well,
no,
you're 1 year out. You're 1 year out.
Wrong.
You know, you're there.
Oh my God, I hate Phil's quizzes.
You typed it. Well, I typed it in the wrong way, but no, we'll give you that one because you said 66. It was 65. So close 65. For one that you were a bit wary about. Okay, the next one is a French international defender, Vincent Candela.
1973. Done.
Yes. Cameroonian striker from this World Cup, Patrick Mboma.
1970. And I knew you were going to ask him, mate. Do you know he was in the 5? I knew you were going to ask.
Patrick Mboma. I had to be. Jamaican midfielder, Robbie Earle.
Oh, shit. He's a bit older. Robbie Earle.
Jamaica's first goal at the World Cup.
Shit. He is 65.
Yes, same as Aldair. Well done. And the last one has also got a wee extra bit of trivia. He's the only player to have played at 3 World Cups for 3 different nations. Dejan Stankovic, Yugoslavia.
1978.
78 is correct. He played at the 2006 World Cup for Serbia and Montenegro, and because that country further got split up, he played for Serbia in the 2010 World Cups. He's played for Yugoslavia, Serbia and Montenegro, and Serbia. 3 different World Cups. 3 different nations, I guess you could call it that. It's a bit of a stretch. When I heard that trivia one, I was like, it's kind of the same nation, but yeah, he is the only one that's played under 3 different badges, essentially, right? And
4 out of 5.
4 out of 5.
4 out of 5.
I mean, the other one, I'd say you were 1 year out, and I had typed it the wrong way round.
I think 4 out of 5 was. I think we take 4 out of 5, mate. I don't think that was bad.
That's a good one. And the trivia question I said at the very start of the show, I said there are 3 teams who have been eliminated at the World Cup without losing a game. So that means that they didn't lose a group game and they got eliminated. But who are the 3 nations? One of them is at the France 98 World Cup.
Fuck knows, man.
This is a hard one. This is a rock hard question. I apologize.
Well, Stephen Coulter comes in, and to be fair to Stephen Coulter, right? He said about 20 minutes into the show, Phil, he had worked out 2 out of the 3 answers. It now looks like he's got all 3. I don't want to bring it up on the screen just yet. I'm going to go one at a time.
Okay.
New Zealand in 2010.
That's correct. They drew with Paraguay, Italy, and Slovakia.
That's mental. And by the way, what a performance that turns out New Zealand had at that World Cup.
Yeah, that was the
unbeaten at World Cup.
Unbeaten, didn't lose a game. They drew all 3 games and they got eliminated with 3 points. Let's say Italy, Paraguay, Slovakia they drew with.
I'm going to go for some other guesses. I've got a feeling Stephen's got them all right. I don't know why. It's just a hunch. Dahalo says Ghana.
No.
Might MT says Scotland.
Yes. You said at the start. You said at the start. That's a very Scotland thing, and I had to kind of keep stum. In 1974, Scotland beat Zaire, drew with Brazil, drew with Yugoslavia. They actually won one of the group games and still got eliminated because, as I keep coming back to saying, only this can happen to Scotland. We are the only team that this can happen to. So Scotland 1974 is a correct answer.
Okay. That means one of Stevens is wrong. Then you said there's only 3, right?
3. There's only 3.
No.
And the one that you've not got is from this World Cup. That's the one that's missing, the 1998 World Cup. And
So
it's not a team
Stephen,
that we talked about. We didn't talk about this team at any point tonight. So that doesn't
I'm going
help.
to go back. I'm going to go to one of Stephen's other guesses. Belgium.
It is Belgium.
1998.
It's 1998 Belgium. They drew with Mexico, South Korea, and Holland in the group stages. So yeah, Scotland 1974, Belgium 1998, and New Zealand 2010 are the only 3 teams to have been eliminated from a World Cup without losing a game.
What about then the other guesses that we've got? We've got Switzerland in 2006.
Switzerland got eliminated without conceding a goal in 2006. They went through the group stages, didn't lose a goal. They drew 0-0 with Ukraine in the round of 16 and then lost on penalties. They're the only team ever to get eliminated without conceding a goal. There you go.
So they must have lost the game then.
No, because they lost in the second round game.
Oh, God.
They lost the lost game. Aye. No, Switzerland didn't concede a goal. They've got that accolade to their name, sadly, where I can always remember watching that game because it was a dreadful 0-0, and Mick McCarthy was on commentary for BBC, and he was even slagging the game off, like, the penalty shootout. I think the first 4 people all missed penalties as well, and he was just like, this is awful. he was just not missing his words. He was just like, this is terrible.
That rings a bell.
But yeah, Switzerland didn't even lose a goal in their campaign, and they still got eliminated. So there you go. Cheers, Ryan. Thank you. But yeah, that's a 1998 show. That's it, mate. We've covered everything tonight. We've done it again, 2 hours, 15 minutes, roughly the same as last week. We had a few gremlins that got in the way, but this bus does not stop. So next week, we'll be doing Euro 2000. As I say, as Martin O'Neill gets announced as Celtic manager that summer, so we're going to talk about Martin O'Neill. We're going to talk about Henrik Larsson because it's the return of the king, comes back from his leg break. We're talking more about Zidane absolutely bossing it in that midfield, especially against Portugal. We're talking about Holland missing a whole plethora of penalties against Italy. Mm-hmm. That's going to be interesting. And yeah, we also signed Yusuf Al-Hadin that summer, and he was at that tournament. Martin O'Neill was doing punditry, so I wondered if he scouted him while he was there. Big use. But yeah, we shall... Anything else you want to say, Russell, before we go? Maybe talk about what's coming up this week on the bus?
Yeah, we've got a busy week, but a big thank you to you first and foremost. Phil McGinlay, that was fucking quality, mate.
No problem, mate.
Too good at this, mate. Too good.
Always a pleasure, mate.
I appreciate it, my man. I appreciate it. But yeah, another action-packed Bhoycie Bus this week. We are back with the TNF tomorrow. We're going to talk about Celtic. You know, remember when we used to talk about them? We are going to be back talking about Celtic and all the points that are made on the TNF, the Thursday night forum to myself and David Logue will be from you, the viewers. We give you the keys. So Phil gets the keys tonight. Next week, the next day, the viewers get the keys. So every point we want to be discussing, we want to be brought to us by you. I think that's fair. I think that is in the right ethics of how this bus is meant to be. And the TNF's been a brilliant, brilliant addition to the weekly sort of schedule. Then Friday, it's one of those, hybrid shows where we're doing the Double Doon show, but it's with Del from the Celtic Supporters Podcast. Del's a great lad. And so it's a bit of a crossover.
Del Boy and Bhoycie, I keep saying, where's Rodney and Trigger and Denzel, mate, when you need them, eh? Oh, Del Boy
I know, mate, I know. Marlene. And then Sunday, brunch time, 11:30, 12, we have got Regan Stevenson back with his Sunday Celtic Blether, and he's got the gorgeous Danielle on this week, Phil. And you've been on the Sunday Blether with Regan before. It is going from strength to strength. I think it's another big week. It's another big week, and what we'll be doing is we've given the Sunday sesh a wee bit of a break because there's not been all that much to talk about. But the Sunday sesh will be making a comeback in the next couple of weeks, and that's when I can really get all your favourite Bhoycie Bus characters on at the same time because we go on like 5 or 6 of us live. But this is just the close season. You could call it a struggle, but we're having the best time in the world doing it.
I've got to thank people for the viewing numbers so far for the Bustalgia. I mean, last week Euro 96 is on like 1.1 thousand views. The USA 94 one was like 800 something. astounding numbers, guys. Because again, we knew we'd do okay with this, but the numbers are showing that we're doing more than okay. And I can't thank you enough. The amount of people who see in the chats and the messages I get on like Twitter and stuff. Honestly, guys, it means so much to me. Like, honestly, I'm very, very thankful for it. So humbled by it.
Aye, that's quality, mate. That is quality. It's well deserved as well. That's the thing, and that it just goes to show you. It just goes to show you, mate, what a bit of hard work can do. And I'm going to need to try and put in some hard work myself one day. But right now,
you do a lot of hard work, mate. Don't you put yourself down, mate. Do not do that. Oh.
Brilliant night. Brilliant night.
Brilliant.
1998. It was great to take the bus back to you.
Brilliant.
It's time that we drive off, mate. We are back to current affairs tomorrow. The Bhoycie Bus keeps on rolling. Every single one in the comments. A huge thank you. Phil McGinlay, thank you. You big legend. Here's the double sugar.
Some of his comments about me deliberately trying to cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now, and you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan.